kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas.
Please be seated. We recognize the presence of our majority leader virtually. We recognize the from Mindanao, Senator Mig Zubiri. We recognize the presence of the chairman of the Senate Committee on Electoral Reform, Senator Amy Marcos. We recognize the presence of virtually Senator Aquilino Coco Pimentel, the author of the measure which we are about to tackle today, Senate Bill 2019. And physically present with us is another senator from Mindanao, Senator Ronald Bato de la Rosa, the chairman of the Senate Committee on Peace and Order, plus a lot of other senators will be joining us later, so we have a quorum. In view of that, the Senate Committee on Local Government is now in order. May we ask the Secretariat to recognize the resource persons in attendance?
Thank you.
Starting with the names of the first to arrive, if you have that, or in alphabetical order. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning. We would like to recognize Member of Parliament Rasul Ismail. Thank you, sir. From the BTA Parliament, we have Attorney Omar Sema, Deputy Speaker. Ministry of Public Works, BTA Parliament, Minister Edward Guerra, with Omar A. Abutasil, Executive Assistant, Tarhata P. Kalim, and Mr. Abdul Ramin No. From the Bangsamoro Transition Authority, we have From the province of Sulu, of course, our Governor Abdusakur M. Tan. Thank you, sir. Together with the following staff, Gambrazar Hayudini and Yashmi S. Tan. And together, sir, with the mayors, they're having other requirements complied at this moment. Mayor Hadar Hajiri of Lugus, Mayor Hermot Jikiri of Indanan, Mayor Nivokadnezar Tulawi of Talipao, Mayor Nurhan Berto of Pandami, Mayor Al-Hadar Loong of Parang, Mayor Abdul Baki Ajibon of Omar, Mayor Kirkhar Tan of Holo, Mayor Ben Said Muksan of Siasi, Mayor Alfrazier Abdurajak of Panamao, Mayor Nur Shamir Halun of Kalingalan, Kalwang, Mayor Abdurauf Burahan of Pata, Mayor Mo Mustafa Burahan of Panglimata Hill, Mayor Asri Taib of Panguratan, represented by Ami Hamja Taib, as well as former Mayor Peping Halun, and Hata Berto. Also, Executive Assistants Wilkinson A. Tan, Abehar E. T. Sahimari. For our virtual attendance, we have the following. From the BTA Parliament, we have our Chief Minister, Honorable Ahod Balawag Ibrahim. Also from the BTA Parliament, we have Attorney Nabil Tan, Attorney Paisalin Tago, and Attorney Jose Lorena, And representing the Bangsamoro Sign BBL movement, Duma M. Mascud. We also have Deputy Speaker Kadafe Mangundadatu. From the Ministry of Basic, Higher and Technical Education, we have Minister Mohahar Iqbal, Chairman and MILF Implementing Panel. From the Ministry of Interior and Local Government, we have Minister Nagib Sinarimbo. From the Ministry of Public Order and Safety, Mr. Hussein Munoz with Attorney Al-Rashid Lukman Balk. From the BTA Parliament Minority Leader, we have Attorney Liza M. Alamia. The Deputy Minority Floor Leader, Attorney Rasol Mitmog Jr. The Deputy Minority Floor Leader, Attorney Soharto Ambolodto. And Member of Parliament, Mr. Amil Bahar Mawalil. From the province of Lanao, we have Attorney Alan Panolong, Board Member of the Sangguniang Panlalawigan. From Cotabato City, the representative of Mayor Attorney Frances Cynthia Gianni Sayadi, we have Attorney Kitem Duque Kadatuan Jr., Secretary to the Mayor of Cotabato. From North Cotabato, representing Governor Nancy A. Catamco, we have Attorney Ermelo Libre, Chief of Staff. From Pikit, Cotabato, the representative of Mayor Sumulong K. Sultan, we have City Norshina Sultan, Executive Assistant 5. From Midsayap, Cotabato, we have Mayor Romeo D. Aranya. From Isabela Basilan, we have Mayor City Jalia A. Turabin Hataman. From the third-party monitoring team, we have Mr. Eno Marius, Chairman. From the Mindanao People's Caucus, we have Attorney Mary Ann Arnado, Secretary General. From the Office of the Presidential Advisor on the Peace Process, OPAP, we have Yusek David Dishano, Chair of the GPH Peace Implementing Panel for the GPH MILF Peace Accord. Yusek Wilben Mayor, Chief of Staff. And from the GPH Peace Panel Secretariat, we have Mark Bayanito, Mohammad Dipatuan, and Joseph Balagtas, as well as Director Farah Grace Naparan from the GPH Peace Panel member. From the DILG, we have Yusek Marjorie Haloshos of the Mindanao Affairs and Special Concerns, and Yusek Rico Judge Echeverry, External and Legislative Affairs. We also have from the DOJ, Department of Justice, State Counsel Attorney Dave M. Fatalia. From the Department of Finance, we have Director Jesus Nathaniel Martin Gonzalez, Director 4 of the Legal Affairs Office. From the Department of National Defense, Attorney R.J. C. Lim, Chief DLLS of the Office of the Undersecretary for Special Concerns. From the Department of Budget and Management, we have Ms. Kathleen Pilapil, Budget and Management Specialist of the Local Government and Regional Coordination Bureau. From the Commission on Election, Attorney John Rex Laudianco, Director 3 of the Law Department. From the Parish Pastoral Council for Responsible Voting, PPS-CRV, we have Maria Isabel Buenaobra, Executive Director. From NAMFREL, National Citizens Movement for Free Elections, Mr. Lito Averia. Also from DILG, we have Yusek Bernardo Florese. Also from DBM, we have Mr. Ryan Joseph Dagdag. And we have online, sir, virtually, the Chief Minister. That's all for now, sir.
As we proceed, magandang umaga po muli sa inyong lahat. To clarify this, we will not be concluding this hearing in one sitting. This will probably be a series of several hearings, considering the issues involved, plus the number of our resource persons. We will not be concluding this today. This will just be an initial hearing. So I restate again, the topic of this hearing is Senate Bill 2019, authored by Senator Aquilino Coco Pimentel, an act amending Section 3, Article 16 of Republic Act 110554 entitled An Act Providing for the Organic Law for Bangsamoro, Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao, repealing for the purpose Republic Act 6734, entitled An Act Providing for the Organic Law of the Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao as amended, entitled An Act to strengthen and expand the Organic Act for the Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao and setting for the purpose the first regular election of the Bangsamoro government filed by Senator Coco Pimentel. And then Senate Bill number 2025, authored by Senator Richard Gordon, also aiming to achieve the same purpose, which is to strengthen and expand the Organic Act for the Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao. We'd like to acknowledge the virtual presence of Senator Christopher Bongo. Magandang umaga po muli. Ito pong ating pagtatalakay ngayon ay isa lamang sa mauunang marami pang pagpupulong nitong committee ito. Under the Bangsamoro Organic Law, the transition period for the establishment of the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region shall commence upon the ratification of the Organic Law and shall be governed by the Bangsamoro Transition Authority or the BTA, which shall be the interim government of the region during the transition period. The transition shall end upon the dissolution of the BTA. The BTA shall be deemed dissolved upon the election and qualification of the Chief Minister under the first Parliament. So ulitin ko po, ang topic natin ngayon ay yung extension, but there might be collateral issues that might be discussed as well, but I urge our resource persons to focus on the measures at hand, the twin bills filed by my colleagues. This committee would like to take legislative notice of the fact that this is not the first time an extension has been proposed. There were 8 instances when elections in the ARMM were postponed. The first postponement was from March 4, 1996 to September 9, 1996. That was the third autonomous region in Muslim Mindanao, and the election was supposed to be held on March 4, but it was amended by Republic Act, March 4, 1996, it was amended by Republic Act 8176, which was approved December 29, 1995, or around 3 months before the scheduled election, and moved the election to September 9, 1996. The second postponement occurred March 8, 1999 to September 9, 1999. The fourth election was supposed to be held on March 8, 1999. It was reset to September 9, 1999 by virtue of Republic Act 8746. The third postponement occurred September 1999 to September 11, 2000. The supposed election of September 1999 was again reset to the second Monday of September 2000 by virtue of Republic Act 8753, which was passed on September 8, 1999, or 1 day before the scheduled elections on September 9, 1999, under Republic Act 8746. And the fourth postponement transpired on September 11, 2000 to May 14, 2001. 10 days before the special elections of September 11, 2000, the date of the fourth ARMM election was moved again to the second Monday of May 2001 by virtue of Republic Act 8953. This time, the ARM election was set to coincide with the general elections. The fifth postponement occurred May 14, 2001 to September 10, 2001. Another law was passed, Republic Act 9012, which changed the date of the election from the second Monday of May to the second Monday of September 2001. The sixth postponement occurred September 10, 2001 to November 26, 2001, a month after the passage of the amendatory law, Republic Act 9012, RA 9054 again postponed the elections. The seventh postponement happened through Republic Act 9333, which set the dates for succeeding ARM elections pursuant to RA 9054. RA 9040 fixed the date for one election, November 26, 2001. Republic Act 9333 was enacted fixing the date of the ARM elections with the second Monday of 2005. On August 28, 2005 and August 11, 2008 elections, the 5th and 6th ARM elections respectively, the 2nd and 3rd ARM elections based on the organic law was based on 933. Only once have the elections been conducted on a date specified by law, and that is the 2008 ARM elections. The 8th postponement occurred on August 8, 2011 to the 2nd Monday of 2013. And here we are tackling the twin bills proposed by my colleagues. We have a full-blown hearing today, and we hope to tackle all of the measures. So we hope to have a very productive hearing given the number of resource persons we have. Again, this committee would like to reiterate the aim of achieving peace, lasting peace in the BARM region. And for the record, we'd like to let all the resource persons know that a few hours ago, just yesterday afternoon, the Senate approved on third reading a measure dividing the province of Maguindanao into two, Maguindanao del Norte and Maguindanao del Sur, with the aim of spurring the development in the said area. And it will have an enormous effect on the BARM region. Having said that, I now allow my colleague physically present here, Senator Bato de la Rosa, to give his opening statement. Bismillah. Senator de la Rosa is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everyone. Sa lahat ng mga in attendance today, this is a very important hearing. Maraming salamat po sa inyong concern sa pagdalo dito. And I am here, Mr. Chairman, to support you, being my chairman in this committee. And I just would like to listen from both sides so that we will be well informed, and our decisions in the future will be based on our listening to both sides. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning po sa ating lahat.
Thank you, Senator de la Rosa. I'm torn between recognizing the author of the measure, Senator Coco Pimentel, or the author of the original Bangsamoro law, our majority leader, Senator Mig Subiri. So,
The
Mr.
majority
Chairman,
leader, sir, should go ahead.
I defer to the author if he wishes.
Majority, I defer to the majority leader.
Oh,
so
thank you,
since
sir.
both of my colleagues are dilly-dallying, I now recognize the presence of Senator Win Gatchalian, who is physically present to give his opening statement. Senator Gatchalian is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, for now, I don't have any opening statement. Thank you.
Thank you. May we ask Senator Coco Pimentel to give his explication as to the rationale of Senate Bill 2019, calling for the postponement of the BARM elections. Senator Pimentel, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Although I would like to put it on record that I was willing to give way to our majority leader, also the leader of Mindanao, not only of our region but of the entire Mindanao. So, thank you for this opportunity, Mr. Chairman, to expound a little on the bill. But first of all, I'd like to thank you for acting quickly on the said measure, as we might run out of time because we will be, I hope not, no, but definitely distracted with the upcoming scheduled election for the other positions in government. So this measure is really born out of my my sense of fairness, because we gave time for the transition from ARM to BARM with new leadership, and yet definitely we cannot deny this. We all lost time due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So out of a sense of fairness, to really measure accurately and judge them fairly on their performance, the least that we could do is to restore to the leaders of the BARM during the transition period at least the time that they lost because of the COVID-19 pandemic. So, and then the second part of the bill is just out of sense of practicality, that since there is an upcoming scheduled election already, uh, uh, after the original schedule is postponed, we just time it with the next scheduled regular election. So just to be practical about it. But it's the first part which is more important, whether or not you agree with my sense of fairness that our current leaders during the transition period, who were given a limited period of time, lost time because of COVID-19 pandemic, just like the rest of us. Naramdaman natin yun eh, na yung productivity din po natin ay naapektuhan. So, that's all, Mr. Chairman, and I wish the committee all the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Pimentel, the author of the measure. Senator Gordon, another author, is about to join us virtually. We recognize now our majority leader, the leader from Mindanao, Senator Mig Subiri, for his opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am flattered and honored to be called the leader of Mindanao, but there's several of us, Mr. President, Mr. Chairman. We have our former Senate President who is my neighbor in Cagayan de Oro, Senator Coco Pimentel. We have, of course, Senator Bato de la Rosa on your right, Mr. President, Mr. Chairman, as well as Senator Bongo and as well as Senator Manny Pacquiao. Although we're all from Mindanao, we all have one heart for peace and development of our island region. Allow me to read just a quick opening statement, Mr. Chair, to our good chairman of the Committee on Local Government, to the members of our committee, to our chief minister and our friends of the Bangsamoro Parliament and the ministries, together with the local government units of the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao, particularly our governors and mayors that are there physically and virtually. To all the civil society organizations and colleagues in government, good morning to us all. Alhamdulillah, and praise God for the day today. My personal journey with the Bangsamoro Organic Law officially started on December 12, 2017, when I filed Senate Bill number 1635. On the same day, I was designated by our Senate President, Senator Aquilino Coco Pimentel, to head the subcommittee to hear and sponsor the Bangsamoro bills in the Senate. I gladly took the cudgels for the Bangsamoro bills at the time when it was not popular to do so, owing to the checkered history of previous attempts to enact a law that will be acceptable to all the stakeholders in the Bangsamoro and the national government, and one that will stand legal scrutiny. Immediately, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, we buckled down to work, conducted marathon hearings in all provinces of the BARM area, and even in Zamboanga City, with record-setting, and may I repeat this, with record-setting number of senators during an out-of-town hearing. I'm sure our distinguished former Senate President, now our Chairman of the Committee on Trade and Industry, Senator Coco Pimentel, would remember our hearing in Zamboanga where I believe we had 8 senators present, a third of the Senate at that time. A few more, we would have had a quorum for sessions in that particular hearing. We also made milestones in visiting the MILF camp in Camp Darapanan and the ground zero at the Marawi City siege area. We were in tears seeing the destruction of Marawi and concluded that what violent extremism could do was happening now in Mindanao. So we declared then that we could no longer let the children and the future generations of the Bangsamoro fall victim to violent extremism and internal conflict in the region. We had sleepless nights during the technical working group meetings in the coming up with the committee report, and the sponsorship on the Senate floor, by the way, was not a walk in the park. As we deliberated on it for several weeks, the bicameral conference committee meetings were equally excruciating as we held day-long meetings and stayed past midnight, even braved the typhoons and floods during that time in Metro Manila. We persevered and did the proverbial burning of the midnight oil in finding a just and lasting peace and meaningful development in the Bangsamoro and even in the whole of Mindanao. And allow me to add, Mr. Chairman, that the final outcome was a true collaboration of bipartisanship, united under a goal of a peaceful Mindanao. It is only then you could see, Mr. Chairman, that members of the minority and majority were working together, working hard to coming up with the provisions acceptable to all sides during this very trying time. On a very rare occasion, we even had an addendum on the opening of Congress, Mr. Chairman, as we approved and ratified the Bicameral Conference Committee report on July 23, 2018. That's the day of the SONA, Mr. Chairman, a day which usually be otherwise purely ceremonial in nature. Usually, pag start of the SONA, that day is just the appointment of those who will greet the president, who will meet with the president, and for the opening of the State of the Nation address. But that day was special, Mr. President, because that day of the SONA, we wanted to present the Filipino people with an approved bicameral conference committee report, the final version of the Bangsamoro Organic Law. Mr. Chairman, a Thanksgiving or Grand Kanduli was held in September 2018 to celebrate the enactment of the Bangsamoro Organic Law or Republic Act 11054. And on that occasion, I was honored and thankful and humbled to be conferred the title of Datu Kalilintad or Prince of Peace. We were euphoric as our hard work was rewarded with overwhelming approval, 88.57% to be exact, of the Bangsamoro people during the plebiscite in January 21, 2019. I'm proud to say that to this day, the law stood legal scrutiny as the Supreme Court has not yet invalidated any provisions of the Bangsamoro Organic Law so far. Mr. Chairman, since its establishment, the Bangsamoro Transition Authority, now the Bangsamoro Parliament, made some progress in sincere efforts in fulfilling its mandates. However, there's still a lot of things to be done. And no one, and I repeat, no one has foreseen the COVID-19 pandemic. This pandemic has made life more difficult and much worse for most of us. More so to an institution in its infancy stage, such as the Bangsamoro Transition Authority. It hit them barely a year on their job. And not to mention, Mr. Chairman, the delays in the appointment of the members of the Transitional Authority in Parliament. Thus, this hearing on the bills extending the transition period of the Bangsamoro Transition Authority is a continuation of our arduous task in finding a just and lasting peace for the Bangsamoro. I am committed more than ever to seeing it through, and I'm hopeful that today's hearings will find a common ground or that magic formula that will be acceptable to both sides of the aisle and other stakeholders in the Bangsamoro. I put my trust and confidence in the full support to the committee chair, Chairman Senator Francis Tol Tolentino, and the members of the committee in resolving these issues and coming up with a committee report at the soonest possible time. Once again, maraming salamat po.
Thank you, Senator Mig Subiri. Before we proceed, I'd like to acknowledge the physical presence of the Member of Parliament, Mr. Rasul Ismael, the Vice Chair of the Committee of Agriculture and Fisheries and Agrarian Reform of the BARM, as well as the arrival of several mayors from Sulu. I'd like to acknowledge the physical presence of Mayor Hermot Jikiri of Indanan, Mayor Ak Dahar Loong of Parang, Mayor Abdul Baki Ajibon of Omar, Mayor Kerhar Tan of Holo, Uzir, Mayor Nur Shamir Halun of Kalingalan, Mayor Mo Mustafa Burahan of Panglima Tahil. Good morning po sa inyo. Thank you for joining us today. We now ask Senator Amy Marcos, the Vice Chair of this committee, to have her opening statement, if any. Senator Marcos, you're recognized.
Yes, thank you very much for the recognition and invitation, and greetings to all my friends, my fellow members from my old league, the Governors League, my mayors. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. It's great to see you all here, and we are indeed taking up these very important bills by both Senator Pimentel and Senator Gordon. I am here more specifically as the chairman of the Electoral Reforms Committee, given that, in fact, this is an election we are postponing. Hence, I would first like to posit Article 17, Section 1, which clearly indicates that any amendment, revision, or repeal in organizing the election shall be made by law or by Congress. Hence, the claim by certain quarters that there would be legal fallibility in the failure to conduct a plebiscite is not valid. Certainly, Congress by law can postpone or otherwise reorganize an election. Secondly, for the purposes of electoral reform and the committee that I lead, Section 40 of the BARM law says that there will be an electoral office in the BARM. This is part of the organic law, and an annual budget is required to be provided. Therefore, BARM, in fact, should be having its own electoral office. Thirdly, however, if we notice, the COMELEC continues to organize elections, given that the status of BARM is still under the control of the national COMELEC. As I understand it, organizationally, the BARM electoral office is effectively comparable to a regional office under the COMELEC. I am happy to be corrected, but that is my present understanding that COMELEC will in fact take this on. If we are to abide, therefore, by both the organic law as well as COMELEC's jurisdiction, it would appear that the COMELEC's policy has been, upon orders of President Rodrigo Roa Duterte, that we continue with all elections as close to their stipulated date as possible. We should be on schedule insofar as it is humanly possible. You will note that despite COVID and a number of postponements, the Palawan plebiscite, dividing the province into three, is about to be conducted in the next few days. Certainly, the COMELEC and the national government have not hesitated in the efforts to organize the national elections to be held in 2022, including the upgrading of the SK or youth voter lists, as well as the continuous and aggressive registration of the OFW. As our chairman has observed, there have been 8 postponements, a long series in the history of BARM, and only one has actually been on time in 2008. To my mind, given the purpose of this law, which was to rectify the historical injustice politically, militarily, as well as economically, it is important that we conduct these elections at the soonest possible time. That is to say, that may not be 2022, but perhaps a compromise may be struck that even a few months or a year after the national election of 2022, we can address the issue of a BARM election. After all, the continued effort at decommissioning and normalization cannot be undertaken without full political legitimacy, without inclusive governance, and without a complete exercise of the voting rights of the Mindanao people. Certainly, this was the purpose of the bill, and it might be time to reconsider this. So I posit a compromise that if 2022 is indeed too soon, postponing and establishing a date for a regional election very closely thereafter may be may provide its own advantages so that we can all assist the transition committee so that we can focus on the normalization that has been stymied by the pandemic so that the unique and difficult circumstances in the area can also be specifically addressed. I thank you, Chairman Tolentino.
Thank you, Senator Marcos. Perhaps that's also a continuation of the vision of your brother who used to head this committee, if I'm not mistaken. But for the record, I'd like to impress upon our resource persons, the members of the BARM, those coming from the civil society, the government sector, our LGU colleagues, that any decision emanating from this committee will not be the decision of the committee chair. Before we decide as to the outcome of these twin measures, we will meet and vote. So that decision will be a decision of the committee. And the decision of the committee will be a collegial decision, and I just asked Senator Gatchalian if the chair is allowed to vote. Parliamentary procedure will dictate that the chairman only votes in case of a tie. So for the record, let me state the members of the Committee on Local Government. The Vice Chairman is Senator Amy Marcos, also the Chairman of the Committee on Electoral Reforms. The members are the following: Senator De La Rosa, who was here a while ago and will be returning, Senator Christopher Bongo, Senator Bong Revilla, Senator Win Gatchalian, who is physically present here with me, Senator Nancy Binay, Senator Cynthia Villar, Senator Panfilo Lacson, Senator Joel Villanueva, and one of the authors, Senator Aquilino Coco Pimentel, Senator Francis Pangilinan, Senator Risa Ontiveros. Ex officio members are the following: Senator Ralph Recto, the President pro tempore, Senator Juan Miguel Zubiri, the leader of Mindanao, Senator Franklin Drilon, the minority leader. Having stated the membership of the committee, I reiterate again that this will be a committee decision. We will be having a committee meeting and we will vote. And the outcome will be a collegial decision. May we now ask Senator Bongo if he's ready for his opening statement? Senator Go? Senator Richard Gordon, the other author of the measure, are you around virtually? He was about to log in. Kung wala pa, we'll just allow them to enter as they join us virtually. But we have a series of presentations that were asked of us. We have the Office of the Presidential Advisor for the peace process. Secretary Galvez is not around virtually because he has to fly to India to secure another bulk of vaccines coming from India's Serum Institute. So I think his office has a short presentation, and if his undersecretary is ready, we can proceed. OPAP, are you ready? Can you just identify yourself, the undersecretary? We cannot hear you. OPAP?
Good morning, sir.
Yes, I think you're alone inside your room. You can remove your face mask so you'll be more audible.
I have with me my other members of the panel, sir.
Okay.
We are four
So
in the
that's
room.
protocol. Go ahead, sir. Go ahead. Identify yourself.
Yes, sir. I am Undersecretary David Diciano, the GPH Implementing Panel Chair, and I'm representing Secretary Galvez on this particular Senate committee hearing. Your Honors, other participants of this committee hearing, good morning. I will be reading a OPAP's position as regards to the extension of the PTA and the postponement of the election from 2022 to 2025. So here's the OPAP's position. As the health crisis has temporarily delayed and restricted the delivery of peace work in the grounds, the OPAP, as reflected in the statement of the Presidential Advisor on Peace, Reconciliation, and Unity during the House Special Committee hearing on Peace, Reconciliation, and Unity, sees that the call for extension of the transition period for the BARM is reasonable and necessary in order to provide ample time to lay down the foundation for transition. We recognize that as the country confronts the challenges brought about by the pandemic, government priorities have shifted and resources have been reallocated to more pressing priorities. As a result, the gargantuan task of the BARM and the BTA pursuant to their mandates in the ball is made even more difficult. The enactment of priority codes and organization of the bureaucracy and setting up of offices and other institutions in the BARM is lagged as the regional government's time, effort, and resources are diverted to handling the health crisis. As for the implementation of the normalization program, OPAP is steadfast in its goal of delivering all commitments in the signed agreements in accordance with the agreed timeline. As the signing of the exit agreement is expected to be done by 2022, the OPAP is planning and programming its deliverables in accordance with this schedule. OPAP is one with the BARM government in working for an efficient transition as an essential component in entrenching just and inclusive peace in the Bangsamoro. That is the OPAP position, sir. Thank you and good day.
Just stay put, Yusek, kasi baka mamaya marami pang tanong. Just stick around, we'll be asking some questions. We now recognize Secretary Lorenzana if he's around. Secretary Del of the Department of National Defense. Any position from DND? Can you hear us?
Mr. Chair, we will be submitting our official position paper.
Can you identify yourself?
I'm attorney.
Dami kasi, pasensya na, I see a lot of personalities in a small screen and I can hardly recognize except for my colleagues who are familiar with me. So can you identify yourself?
Mr. Chair, I am attorney RJ Lim from the Department of National Defense, and we will be submitting our official position paper in writing to this committee.
Can we have that? Can we have that within a week? I think Secretary Lorenzana is the cabinet officer in charge for this region and is very well engaged and immersed in the issues involved. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
May we ask, I think Secretary Anyo is still not healthy to appear. The representative of the DILG, Undersecretary Flores, if you're around.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you, recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and to the honorable members of the Senate Committee on Local Government. I thank as well the honorable chair and the other members for inviting us in this hearing for us to be able to represent the national government as well as the local government units in BARM, the governors and mayors, as well as the PTA. I attended the meeting in Davao last February 27, together with the Honorable Chair and Senator Sibiri. And it was a great dialogue wherein the two groups have somewhat come up with a compromise agreement. And then after that dialogue, they had a series of consultations with their constituents and other political leaders in the area. And yesterday also I attended another dialogue with them. And the latest so far, yesterday was supposedly to sign a covenant on what we have agreed on last February 27, but it was held in abeyance pending the request for the manifestation of Governor Sakur to submit the respective legal opinion on whether it is proper and legal to reappoint members of the BTA, particularly the 39 members who were appointed by the president. So they will be submitting their legal opinion on Friday to the Department of National Defense, and from there, I guess there will be a good compromise, and whatever the agreement or whatever compromise they could agree on, then the department will support whatever is their decision. So thank you very much, Mr. Chair, for inviting us in this forum. Good morning.
Thank you, Yusek. Thank you also for your continuous participation. Before we recognize the Chief Minister of BARM, Alhaj Murad Ibrahim, I'd like to recognize again the arrival of the physical arrival of some of the mayors from Sulu, Mayor Hadar Hajiri of Logos. Thank you for coming, sir. Mayor Nixo Kadnedsar Tulawi of Talipao. Thank you for coming, sir. Mayor Alfrazer Abdu Rajak of Panamaw. Thank you for coming, sir. Former Mayor Hata Berto, and the following executive assistants from the Office of the Governor, Wilkinson Tan and Bejar Sahi Mari. Thank you for coming. May we now recognize the Chief Minister, Alhaj Murad Ibrahim. And before he starts, I'd like to remind the resource persons and those physically present, levity aside, the Senate, another committee of the Senate tackled a firecrackers bill, and that is meant to regulate the sale of firecrackers. So this committee will not be expecting some fireworks, so to speak, because that firecrackers bill is lodged in another committee, not this committee. May we now recognize the Chief Minister, Chief Minister Murad of the BARM. Chief Minister, you're recognized for your presentation.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. The Chief Minister, Balawag Ibrahim, is sending his regrets that he cannot join us either physically or virtually. But
it's now Minister Iqbal.
Yes, I'm reading the.
Thank you, sir.
The message of the Chief Minister. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Before I begin, let me extend my warmest salutations and gratitude to the Committee on Local Government and the Committee on Electoral Reforms and People's Participation, headed by Senator Francis Tolentino and Senator Amy Marcos, respectively, to the respective committee secretariat, honorable members of this chamber, especially Senator Coco Pimentel, Senator Miguel Juvire, Senator Richard Gordon, Senator Vinny Gatchalian, and of course, to all those who are present here this morning. A peaceful day to all of you. Mr. Chair, The discussions on why we need to extend the transition period for the interim government is clear by now. Aside from the urgency to complete the normalization track of the peace process, there is a need to make use that the infant government fulfills its mandate to the people, and that can only be realized if we have completed setting up the new bureaucracy as mandated by Republic Act number 11054, otherwise known as the Bangsamoro Organic Law. We have also made it a point that extension of the Bangsamoro Transition Authority is not about keeping power, but to assure that there is also a proper transition for our comrades on the ground towards a productive civilian life. After all, Mr. Chair, the heart of this government is about providing hope to those who were scarred by the decades-long conflict in Mindanao and restarting their lives during this transition phase. Mr. Chair, Senate Bill numbers 2019 and 2025 manifest that urgency. In the same effect, I am optimistic that the collective wisdom of this august body will ultimately benefit the people of Mindanao and the Bangsamoro peace process. It is our shared responsibility to pass on a more peaceful region to the next generation and perhaps fulfill our homeland's potential in economy and productivity. Ladies and gentlemen, if we look at the checklist of our peace process, we barely check off significant deliverables to assure that the environment stays true to what the law provides, and we cannot afford to lose this opportunity of building better lives for our people. With two priority codes done, two already in the parliament and two at the level of the regional cabinet, I am confident that we can deliver the end of our bargain specifically in the political track. However, Mr. Chair, that's just one side of the story, and today we get the opportunity to see why we truly need to manifest our shared vision in the Bangsamoro Organic Law. I look forward in a fruitful dialogue with all of you, and as always, for the Bangsamoro and for the pursuit of moral governance. Thank you very much, and wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you, Minister Iqbal. Just stick around because there might be some questions emanating from some of my colleagues. We now ask a statement coming from Governor Sakurtan, who's physically present, and I think we have received several. For the record, we have received several resolutions from the LGUs of the BARM relative to this issue, and the committee would like to take notice of resolutions coming from the Sangguniang Panlalawigan of the province of Tawi-Tawi, supporting the extension. We have a Sangguniang Panlalawigan resolution coming from, I think it's Lanao del Sur, also in support of the resolution of Senator Pimentel, and League of Municipalities resolutions from Tawi-Tawi, and an opposition coming from Cotabato City Mayor Cynthia Giani. Of course, we have the opposition coming from Governor Sakurtan. But before we give the floor to Governor Sakurtan, I'd like to virtually recognize the presence of Governor Nancy Katamko of North Cotabato, who's around. I think this is another issue because we have 63 barangays in limbo. They don't have a municipality. They are still barangays, so to speak. So we now recognize Governor Sakurtan. Assalamualaikum.
Maraming salamat, sir. Thank you very much, Chairman Senator Francis Tolentino, sir. Senator Chalian, thank you. And to the honorable members
of this committee. Thank you very much for giving us this opportunity to be present. And we had prior meeting, sir. That informal meeting, it was attended by the chairman and the majority floor leader, Senator Mig Zubiri, as well as Senator Rabato. And based on that request, that dialogue be conducted. We did had a dialogue with our brothers from the BARM, headed by the Chief Minister, Murad Ibrahim, together with members of his team that was in Cotabato, where the Chairman Tolentino was also present, as well as Senator Mig Zubiri, as well as the SND, the Senate Secretary.
I think, Governor, that was in Davao.
That was in Davao. I'm sorry. Also, Secretary Lorenzana and others. Secretary Abisado was also present. And of course, there were other secretaries and undersecretaries of the different departments, as well as Secretary Galvez himself. And we're very, very thankful that dialogues obtained between the two sides, although not exactly opposing, as during that meeting of ours, we started to try to meet perhaps halfway. And of course, there were proposals coming from us to conduct the elections, considering that it is so provided in the Organic Act. And referring to the postponements of past elections in the ARM, according to our lawyers, in the ARM postponements, it was not so provided in the Organic Act, the setting of the elections. It was not so provided, so it was that easy, perhaps, to just change the dates or move the dates of the elections. Unlike in this BARM organic law, it is so provided that the term would be 3 years and the elections would be synchronized, and that it is going to be in 2022. And this was submitted to the people in the plebiscite. And last night, there was supposed to be a covenant signing supporting the extension, but I suggested to the presiding Secretary Lorenzana that we should not sign first, but look into the legalities and the orderliness of the matter of signing covenants and proceeding with the postponement of the elections. So I suggested that we submit legal opinions so that perhaps this can help. This can help us look into it so as not to, we do not want to cause any embarrassment, especially to the, of course, the institutions like the Congress of the Philippines, as well as the President himself, as while there were proposals like we conduct the elections, we argued that the elections of the new members of parliament would be far better than just proceeding with a transitory authority. A transitory authority to us is not actually the parliament. So it is a transitioning to the parliament. And the parliament can, of course, continue whatever mandate is given to the transitory authority. So, in which case, to us, it would be more legitimate and very regular, and as well as consistent with the provisions of the law and our commitment to the people by doing the plebiscite or conducting the plebiscite, that in 3 years, the people will be given that right of suffrage, which rightfully belongs to them. So, I would think that maybe there could be, interested people, so many intelligent people here in the Philippines who may question the orderliness or the legality of moving the date of the election from what is so provided in the organic law. Although we agreed that we are going to support the candidacy of Chairman Murad, that being the commitment of the government of the Philippines to allow them to govern as a part of the compromise. But then we thought that that would be far easier for us and would regularize and organize the parliament, the first parliament. Because at the moment, they are governing not as a parliament. In fact, it was so mentioned by the Honorable Senator Nene Pimentel that we are transitioning to towards the first parliament. Now, so that is our argument, Mr. Chairman, sir. Now, there was that counter proposal that out of the 80 members of would be members of the parliament or members now of the BTA, 41 of which, the majority, so provided also by, I think part of the agreement is should be members of the MILF, the Moro Islamic Liberation Front, and 39 of which should come from the Philippine government. And that was offered to us or to the local government units for them to recommend to the office of the president. But the thing there is, we also have doubts if these members of the BTA can just be removed and replaced, or do they have to resign? Or although some say that since the appointing authority is the office of the president or the president himself, but there are offices like the Commission on Elections, of which the term is fixed and can only be removed for cause. So that is why we are looking at this for purposes of I think, a greater harmony between the two parties. So, but either way, we are saying that we will support Chief Minister Murad. With elections, we will support Chairman Murad. Without the elections or extending or postponing the elections, we will also support Chairman Murad. Of course, with the proposed offer of including the 39 members of the BTA. So yun po ang in-offer, as well as some members of the cabinet. Actually, they were already discussing about offers of members of the cabinet to the different provinces. But I suggested that why don't we wait first until we shall have submitted our legal opinions, so that competent authorities, as well as the Senate of the Philippines and the House of Representatives, the Office of the President, the Department of Justice, the Solicitor General, and can go over this and ensure that whatever we do would be the best, and not only the best for the institutions but for our people in Mindanao, in the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region. Yun lang po, sir. Maraming salamat.
Thank you, Governor Sakurtan. Before we elicit some reactions from the proponent, Senator Pimentel, and the majority floor leader, I'd like to have Governor Nancy Katamco just linked up with us if she has an opening statement. Governor Nancy Katamco of North Cotabato, are you virtually present?
Yeah, good morning, Mr. Chair.
Is Governor Katamco there? Wala?
Governor, good morning, Chair. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, and ladies and gentlemen.
Before you proceed, sir, before you proceed, I'd like to recognize the physical attendance of the following additional mayors from Sulu: Mayor Nurhan Berto Pandami, Mayor Ben Sayed Muksan of Siasi, and former Mayor Piping Halun of Sulu. Ang dami nyo na rito. Baka wala nang tao sa Sulu. You're all here. So, from North Cotabato, who is the representative? Go ahead, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, honorable members of the Senate. Governor Nancy Katamco conveys her apology for not able to attend this meeting. She is now joining an LCAC meeting in the municipality of Makilala. However, she would like to request the Senate to read into the records her position on this matter if the Senate will allow.
Go ahead. You have the floor here.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. So this is the statement position of the Governor of Cotabato Province, Nancy A. Katamco, on the matters being discussed today. And I quote, Republic Act number 11054, the Bangsamoro Organic Law, was approved in a plebiscite conducted on January 21, 2019. This law outlined many important provisions to ensure a realistic empowerment and genuine self-governance of the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao. It provided, among others, the process of normalization to finally end decades of conflict and misunderstanding. The BARM territory is now expanded so that its development initiatives will become more inclusive. An important mechanism created by the Bangsamoro Organic Law is the Bangsamoro Transition Authority, which is tasked to provide reinforcing framework for effective governance of BARM. The Transition Authority is given a specific period to work on the initial complex work of laying down the needed governance structures that will pave the BARM's multidimensional operations. Under the Bangsamoro Organic Law, the first regular election for the Bangsamoro government shall be held and synchronized with the 2022 national elections. I never hesitated to support the initial clamor to extend the existence and working time of the Bangsamoro Transition Authority. Their mandated tasks are heavy and complicated in view of the many multi-sectoral concerns that have to be considered in framing concretely the inclusive visions enshrined in the Bangsamoro Organic Law. The unexpected arrival of COVID-19 pandemic is another undeniable factor which I believe caused disruptions to the timelines of activities and other deliverables set by the Transition Authority. As a first-time governor of the province of North Cotabato, I can fully understand the constraints of time in fulfilling a novel vision. The realization of my own governance roadmap for Cotabato province was also inconveniently slowed down due to many unexpected constraints such as the perennial resistance to change and the consuming demands for transitory adjustments to new institutional governance arrangements. Most of all, the COVID-19 pandemic gravely affected all development momentum, not only in BARM, but also other local, national, and international institutions and government units. In my humble assessment of the challenges and complexity of the mandates given to Bangsamoro Transition Authority, there is really a need to prolong, for the meantime, the existence of the Bangsamoro Transition Authority. This can significantly give enough working time to the Transition Authority to fully achieve the important mandates granted to it by the Bangsamoro Organic Law. Our common journey to inclusive peace and development in Muslim Mindanao is always a continuing work in progress until we all achieve as one people the fruits of our vision for our Muslim brothers and sisters. Premised on the above realities, I manifest my unequivocal support to the proposed legislative move in the Senate to postpone the first regular election for the Bangsamoro government to be held and synchronized with the 2025 national election. Unquote. That's the statement, Mr. Chair, of Governor Nancy Catampo. Daghang salamat.
Thank you, from North Cotabato. Is Mayor Cynthia Gianni around of Cotabato City? So wala si Mayor Cynthia. May we elicit reactions from our colleagues relative to the statements coming from Minister Iqbal and Governor Sakurtan? Perhaps the majority leader can start the ball rolling. Senator Zubiri.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. What was that again, Mr. Chairman? My apologies. I'm also shuttling between your committee and the Committee on Public Services. What was that again, Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
Sorry, Mr. Chairman. Hello?
It's them. It's not us.
My apologies, but I think I lost the chairman.
Sila. Senate.
Sen Coco, can you hear the chairman or wala din?
I can hear you. I think tayo nawala eh.
No, sila.
Tayo na wala. Yeah,
Tayo nawala sa kanila, sila nawala sa atin. Parang ganun, parang there are two groups.
yeah, I think they're having problems. So,
Senator Pimentel, can you hear us?
yeah, sorry, we lost you. We lost you,
Now we
Chairperson.
can hear you.
Yes. So it's okay now? Can you have your thumbs up if you can hear us? So we can proceed. Senators, Mig Zubiri, can you, would you like to react as to the statements coming from Minister Iqbal and Governor Sakurtan? And we are now treading on grounds that probably would invoke the decommissioning process, the need for an electoral code, the need to comply with the date set forth in the law that you authored if it is 2022 elections. So, Senator Miggs, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Actually, we're in a quandary because, as much as we want to also accommodate the local government units of their request to have a local, synchronized with this coming 2022 elections, the truth of the matter, Mr. Chairman, is the transition authority was a bit delayed in its implementation. The appointment of their leaders were delayed, practically almost 6 to 8 months delayed. And then we have the pandemic, which prevented a lot of our leaders to really assemble during the ECQ period. There was no assembly, so napakahirap. Humabol na lang sila katulad natin, Mr. Chairman, na magkaroon ng virtual assembly. But tayo na una sa Senado at sa Kongreso. So it was a unique situation where everyone was in. Hindi na sila makaikot sa iba't ibang probinsya. So there really also was a delay in the implementation of the promises of the Bangsamoro Organic Law. With that said, I think they're trying their best now to fast track. No, I believe there's a comprehensive infrastructure program in place. If I'm not mistaken, over 3 to 4 billion per province would be given in terms of infrastructure. They're speeding up their laws that they need to pass, the codes that they need to pass under compliance of the Bangsamoro Organic Law. Pero yun nga, medyo bitin. So it's trying to, the ball is really in the hands of the committee on deciding the greater good, the greater good of the region. When I say greater good, it's peace and development, Mr. Chairman, and we don't want to go backwards. We don't want to step back into a period of hostilities once again, because that would be the worst for us. It is unprecedented yung growth rate ng Mindanao after the Marawi siege and after the passage of the Bangsamoro Organic Law. We have seen a development in northern Mindanao that we haven't seen in many years. The dear city of our colleague Senator Coco Pimentel was almost double digits in growth rate. Kumuntik na tayo humabol sa Davao City in terms of growth rates in 2019 and before the pandemic hit. So not only in northern Mindanao but the rest of Mindanao, I believe BARM also was having phenomenal growth. I think there were 8% GDP. 8 to 9% GDP, also unheard of in the past because of guns being silent. So it's a big, we have a big responsibility to act on and a big important, I'd say, task to in the next few weeks, Mr. Chairman, in trying to balance that out, trying to retain the peace and development that we have gained with this Bangsamoro Organic Law and the march towards long and lasting and just peace. At the same time, being able to comply with the democratically set processes in our Constitution. So, yan po ang napakahalaga. Giving the people a choice, at the same time continuing the peace gains that we have had in the last few years. So, I leave it. It's impossible for me to decide, Mr. Chairman. I am just one. I am just a one person. Of course, I would like to see my baby, our baby. I consider that our baby. Senator Coco was the Senate President at the time we approved it, so that's our baby. We'd like to see our baby succeed and grow up to be a strong and healthful and healthy region of our country. which not only gives before, when we say these areas, we mentioned these areas, it would give us a sort of like a difficult time because of the conflict. But now it is such a progressive part of our republic. So we want to keep those gains, Mr. Chairman, but of course without, without leaving our political elected leaders behind. So that is the challenge we face now, Mr. Chairman. That is the challenge that the committee will have to decide, and hopefully we can resolve in the soonest possible time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mukhang naputol ulit tayo, Senator Coco. Mukhang naputol ulit tayo.
Looks like there are two networks, their own. Then we are in one network mix. Then we are linked to them.
Oo nga, we've been having problems with the Senate internet, Senator Coco. The past few days nagkakaroon ng lag, di ba? Nawawala sila. At nawawala din kayo.
Yes, si Joe Lorena. I can still see him. Joe, can you hear us?
Yeah, I think those who are online can hear us.
Yeah, so
Si Attorney Nagib is there, si Minister is there.
so we are as if one network, and then they have another network. Then ito yung line ng napuputol.
Wala, no? I think there is an ongoing Commission on Appointments hearing. That's why we're trying to fight for a single broadband space. Thank you, Senator Mig Subiri.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
You just showed your passion as a true-blooded Mindanaoan. Senator Win Gatchalian, who is physically present, the chairman of the Senate Committee on Economic Affairs and Environment and Energy, would like to propound some questions. Senator Gatchalian, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, Mr. Chair, for the record, I voted in favor of the Bangsamoro Autonomous or Bangsamoro Organic Law. And I was actually one of the 8 senators who went with Senator Zubiri at that time to visit the different provinces in the Bangsamoro region. I supported the Bangsamoro Organic Law because I don't believe that the country will truly be prosperous if we don't have peace nationwide. As simple as that, Mr. President, Mr. Chairman. True prosperity comes with true peace nationwide, not only in Metro Manila, not only in Luzon, but throughout the country, in all nooks and crannies of our beloved nation, Mr. President. So, Mr. President, I also voted for the organic law because I remember during the discussions, Mr. President, the young lawyers of the Bangsamoro Organic Law, the young Muslim lawyers, were very passionate about getting the organic law approved, Mr. President. I remember the young Muslim lawyers visiting our office constantly, convincing us, explaining thoroughly the organic law and its benefits to our Muslim brothers and sisters, Mr. President. Those young faces inspired me, Mr. President, because I can see their passion. And most of all, I can see they're fighting for hope in their home region, Mr. President. So that also convinced me to vote for the Bangsamoro Organic Law. But Mr. President, mas na-convince po ako sa charm ng ating majority floor leader. Alam niyo naman yan, pag nagsabi na dapat tulungan, tutulungan ho talaga natin. No? But levity aside, Mr. President, having said that, this postponement, Mr. President, is also quite an important topic. Alam naman ho natin, no, mga politiko, marami na ho tayong na-postpone na iba't ibang election from barangay to the ARM. Ang kasabihan nga nila, para sa isang magaling na leader, maiksi po ang 3 years, pero para sa masamang leader, mahaba po yung 3 years. So postponing it will have adverse consequences, Mr. President, Mr. Chairman. So having said that, Mr. Chairman, I have very fundamental questions, very, very fundamental questions to the OPAP. Because I've been listening earlier, and the primary reason for this postponement is because of COVID. No? COVID disrupted many activities many transition programs as well as many development programs that should be taking place in the Bangsamoro region, Mr. President. So my question to OPAP is, can you detail to us what are the programs, what are the activities that were delayed because of COVID? I want to understand, no? Before I throw my vote in, I want to understand because this is the ultimate reason. COVID disrupted many things. But that disruption also happened in Metro Manila, happened in Valenzuela, and we just had to navigate and adapt to that disruption, Mr. President. Sabi nga nila, you just have to live with the COVID, no? And you just have to live with it, Mr. President. So, having said that, I just want to ask OPAP, what are the activities and the programs that were disrupted based on the uh, list of activities that should be taking place? This is a fundamental question, Mr. President, but it will help us understand and hopefully later on make a decision, Mr. President.
OPAP, can you answer that? And perhaps if I may add, if Minister Iqbal is also willing to answer that. But before they answer, I'd like to recognize again the physical and the virtual presence of Senator Bongo and our minority leader, Senator Franklin Drilon. OPAP, you have the floor to respond.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. If I may answer the question directly, I will briefly discuss the normalization activities that the OPAP is implementing in compliance to the comprehensive agreement on the Bangsamoro. This is the normalization track, and I will just give some major updates as to what activities that we have done for the past few years. First, on the security aspect, that is part of the normalization. And on that security aspect is the decommissioning of the 40,000 combatants and the 7,000 weapons. As of this date, we are now on phase 3, meaning we are on the process of decommissioning the 14,000 combatants for this year up to next year, and the decommissioning of 2,350 firearms for phase 3. We have just finished phase 1 and phase 2 of decommissioning of the 12,145 combatants up to last year, and the decommissioning of 2,245 firearms. So entering phase 3, that phase 3 should have started last year. But since there was a pandemic, we have difficulty in the process or in the implementation of the commissioning, since the list of the 14,000 was not delivered to us because the inventory of the firearms and combatants was bit delayed precisely of the COVID. So this year, we are already on the process of verification and the validation of the list given to us by the MILF. So again, the activity will be done this year up to next year. So for the phase 4, that is another 14,000 combatants and 2,350 firearms that will be decommissioned after the phase 3. And I think that timeline, the time for that phase 4 will be, I think, next year up to 2023. And that is the conservative estimate on my part. On the other aspect of security, that is the training of the joint peace and security teams that will be deployed to secure all the areas needed to be secured for the areas that is being left for the teams to secure, especially for those combatants that need to be secured. So up to this time, we have already finished the training of the 15 teams for the joint peace and security teams. Another program is the disbandment of private armed groups, the management of light weapons, and the resolution of dispute, the resolution of dispute resolution, meaning uh, the RIDO. That's part of the security aspect. And for the socio-economic aspect of the normalization, we have already delivered some of the deliverables, meaning the immediate cash assistance for the 12,145 was already given. Meaning for the phase 1 and phase 2, we have given 100,000 each combatants. And other programs intended for the combatants like the capacity development, livelihood development are already on its way. In fact, some of the social services or social workers were already deployed to conduct need assessment to all combatants to get all the needed support to be given not only to the combatants but also to the communities. So up of this date, we have already conducted the need assessment, and we are on the process of getting the assessment and the evaluation needed to deliver the needed programs to the communities and to the combatants. As of this date, we have already entered into a memorandum of agreement to other agencies of government. We have already a MOA with NIA in building irrigation projects to all agricultural sectors of the BARM. We have also entered a MOA with the Department of Trade and Industry for the creation of a cooperative to the combatants. We have also the PhilHealth, PhilHealth insurance and the birth certificate programs for all the combatants. And the bulk of the program is the housing project. This is the most difficult part because as of this date, there is no budget for the housing project to be given to the combatants because of the lack of funds. And that is the big challenge for the normalization program for the combatants and their communities. Another aspect of the normalization is the confidence building. We have already the camp transformation plan being turned over by the BPDA to the implementing panel for the approval of the transformation of the 6 major camps identified in 1999. These are the 6 major camps that will be transformed into a developed area so that it can be transformed into a productive community. Another aspect of the confidence building is the just recently signed amnesty program for the not only for the MILF but for all other armed groups, including the MNLF, the RPA, ABB, and the CPLA. And the last aspect of the normalization is the TJR or the Transitional Justice and Reconciliation. As of this date, the ICCMN TWG is on the process of developing a roadmap for the TJR, and they're on the process of capacity building and information campaign in all areas of the BARM as regards to the program of the TJR. So in that is the summary of the normalization updates. We will give you, if you don't mind, sir, we will be giving you a copy, or we will just send you a detailed updates of normalization program to your committee for your appreciation. Thank you, sirs.
Thank you. Before I allow Senator Gatchalian to proceed, perhaps coming from OPAP, the OPAP family, I probably would like to ask this question to a friend. Is the delayed performance or deliverables, can this be attributed to the multitasking role of Secretary Galvez, who is now likewise the vaccine czar, and I think he will be very, very, very busy in the days, months, and years ahead. He's right now in India. Can you attribute that to the multitasking role of Secretary Galvez, because his time is consumed, I think, 3/4 all the way to IATF concern, and now vaccination rollout, and so on and so forth. Can you answer that, Yusek? Because I think that's part of your response. The head. And no offense to the mayors here, because all the vice mayors of Sulu have now taken over as mayors, including the capital. The vice governor is now the acting governor. So would you attribute that, Yusek, to the multitasking role of Secretary Galvez?
I don't think so, sir. I think the delay of the normalization program is not attributed to the fact that the secretary is given additional function as being the vaccine czar and the NTF implementer chair. I think what probably delayed some of the programs are the limited funds available and also the pandemic. In fact, General Galvez is always checking on the programs, on the needed projects to be delivered for the normalization of the BARM or the combatants and their commitments. But we are on track, and I think the needed budget is the one giving us some of the delays of the normalization program, sir.
Thank you, Senator Gatchalian. You may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, Mr. Chair, if the fund allocation is the main issue and it's the reason for the delay, then I think the extension will not cure that, because we will always have some problems with funds, Mr. President, and the extension of the election will not solve those problems, no, because that is a problem that is quite perennial, especially during the budget season, Mr. President. So if we are saying that the cause of delay is the lack of funds, then it's not the it's the, I don't want to call it fault, no, but the issue here of extension will not cure that issue, will not cure that problem, Mr. President. So even though we extend it, for example, we do approve this law, and next year meron na naman lack of funds, then maybe that reason, that will be another reason for extending it again, Mr. President. So I'm trying to understand, Mr. President, what is the root cause of those delay, and try to link that to the extension, Mr. President, because the extension should be the goal of the extension should be to solve those problems and issues, no. But if the problems and issues are linked to the budget, then the extension will definitely not solve that, Mr. President. So again, going back, no, just to simplify my question, Mr. President, I want to understand fully what are the activities that were delayed because of COVID, not because of other things, no, because COVID seems to be the primary reason for that. And I was hoping for a detailed presentation, maybe a detailed discussion from OPAP, so that we understand. We owe our decision to the people of the Bangsamoro, no? Because this is a hot button issue, and we need to fully justify our decision by understanding how COVID disrupted the um, explanation of those activities, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Gatchalian. OPAP, can you respond? And then we'll allow DBM, if you're around, to respond likewise to the question of Senator Gatchalian. OPAP, any reaction?
Yes, sir. If I have to understand the question, sir, because naputol kanina, sir, the major delays in the normalization program is one is the decommissioning of the 40,000 combatants. So I have mentioned a while ago that the phase 3 of the decommissioning will commence this year since it was delayed. Supposed to be the phase 3 should have started last year. So the 28,000 combatants that will be decommissioned from 2021 up to the succeeding years is a very big task because it will entail a lot of work and budget needed, including the decommissioning of these firearms. So the 14,000 that is scheduled to be decommissioned this year was really delayed. So the 14,000 might be finished up to next year. And the phase 4, the succeeding 14,000 might even be delayed. So the timeline that I have mentioned while ago that the normalization based on our roadmap should be finished next year. That is 2022. So there was already a big delay in the normalization of the decommissioning of the 40,000, including the firearms. Again, related to the decommissioning is the implementation of the socio-economic packages for all the 40,000 combatants. So as of this date, we only gave 100,000 immediate cash assistance for the 12,145 decommission for phase 1 and phase 2. So for the phase 3, meaning for the 14,000, we need a lot of budget. That is 1.4 billion for the phase 3 for the 14,000. And what budget we have as of this year is only I think 9 billion. 9 million. 9 million is available out of the 1.4 needed cash assistance for the 14,000 combatants. So that is only for the immediate cash assistance. Additional other requirements like the capacity building, livelihood development program, and the infrastructure projects are still to be considered also, and these are not yet budgeted. So if we have to sum it all, only 100,000 out of the 1 million that was being considered per combatants, that was only available for implementation. Mr. Chair.
So, Mr. Chair, I have two more questions just to expound on the answer. So, sir, what you're saying is the delay is due to that lack of 1.4 billion pesos due to the combatants or the social economic project that is for the combatants. Tama po ba?
Yes, sir. Actually, sir, we just based the computation for the amount of combatants that can be decommissioned for this year, because we cannot decommission the 14,000 for this year because we will be experiencing a lot of challenges because of pandemic, because we will be going to a lot of areas just to make verification and validation of the 14,000. And the process of decommissioning will also entail a lot of people, moving a lot of people from their place to one area for decommissioning. So we only estimated the 9 million as the initial amount needed for the cash assistance to be given to the combatants, and not mentioning the other programs that will be delivered to them, because the other programs will be delivered as soon as the social workers will be finished in getting the needed requirements for the development of the combatants and their communities, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My last question, Mr. Chair, is itong proposed earlier, sir, you mentioned that the OPAP supports the extension because it's necessary. How will the extension improve the pace of this transition program? How will it improve the activities outlined in the transition program? If again, taking consideration of the budget required, no, because my point here is the extension is meant to solve the problems. But if you're saying that the budget is the problem, how will the extension solve that budget issue? No? Among others, Mr. Chair, to the representative of OPAP.
Yes, sir. I think the program for the normalization really is not cannot be finished up to next year, as I have mentioned. But the program for the normalization will go beyond 2022, meaning we can still continue the other needed deliverables for the combatants and their communities even beyond 2022, because this is the commitment of the government in developing the combatants and their communities. So this is a continuing program, even if the election or the postponement will be approved or not. The program for the normalization will still continue, Mr. Chair.
Perhaps we can give a time for the DBM to respond. Although Secretary Abisado is not virtually present, I think he has a representative here. And then we'd likewise recognize DILG BARM, Senarimbo, to make his response to Senator Gatchalian's query. DBM, ang tanong po dito, nabigay na po ba yung pondo? Na-download na po ba yung tamang pondo para gamitin ng BARM? Even with or without COVID. DBM, can you reply? Nandiyan pa ba yung DBM?
Good morning po, Your Honor. This is Ryan.
Identify yourself first. Can you identify? Yes, Ryan Joseph Dagdag. Ano po yung sagot nyo dun sa tanong ni Senator Gatchalian?
Sir, I'm from the Local Government and Regional Coordination Bureau po of the DBM. Sir, generally po, funds are released based on the pertinent provisions of the GAA. However, sir, for the DBM po to properly address the concern, sir, siguro po may we respectfully request for the details of the subject PAP, then we'll relay po sa handling officer.
This is a very general question. Narinig mo kanina yung normalization. There was supposed to be a 1 million per combatant, and apparently what was given was just 100,000. reference was made to 14,000 combatants, but I think, correct me if I'm wrong, OPAP, the whole universe is 40,000 combatants. So, disregard first the PAP requirement. 1/10 lang ba nabibigay nyo?
Your Honor, apologies po sir, I don't have the details right now, but I will secure po the information, then I will provide po immediately, sir.
Sana before we end this hearing today, you can provide this committee with that information. We now recognize the DIL Minister of BARM, Minister Sinarimbo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Magandang umaga po sa mga kasama natin, lalo na po kay...
And sir, before you proceed, you confine yourself to the query of Senator Gatchalian.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Doon po sa ano pa yung mga activities na hindi natatapos sa normalization aspect ng agreement natin, which is linked to the political milestones in the implementation of the Bangsamoro government. Hindi ho gagalaw yung normalization process pagka hindi natin na-achieve yung political milestones doon sa political track natin. Ganun ho naka-interlink yung dalawa. Una ho yung decommissioning. Yung decommissioning po, ang total na i-decommission natin, 40,000. As of date, 12,145 pa lang ho. Ang remaining period na lang natin ay 1 year or even less than a year. So if you judge yung progress from the day we started decommissioning up to 2022, clear naman po na hindi matatapos yan dahil at the rate we are moving, mabagal ho. Doon sa 12,145 na na-decommission na natin, meron tayong commitment yung government na bibigyan sila ng socio-economic package. Ang total ho niyan ay 1 million per combatant. As of date, 10% lang ho nung kinomit natin sa kanila ang nadi-deliver natin doon sa 12,145. Ibig sabihin, 90% pa ang utang natin doon sa na-decommission na natin. This will have serious impact on the next decommissioning process. Kasi ho, magtatanong yung 14,000 kung ano nangyari doon sa mga kasama nila na na-decommission earlier. Kung hindi ho maganda yung result noon, magdadalawang isip ho yan na magpapadecommission ba or hindi. Pangalawa ho, doon sa redeployment ng Armed Forces of the Philippines, doon sa mga areas na pinag-agrihan na natin na secured na yan dahil wala nang MILF dyan dahil nag-decommission na. Hindi pa ho ito nagsisimula. Doon po sa transitory security arrangement natin, ito yung Joint Peace and Security Teams, meron tayong pinagkasunduan na 6,000 joint teams. 3,000 ho dito ay PNP-AFP, 3,000 ho dito ay MILF. As of today, ang nade-deploy lang natin doon sa supposedly 6,000 ay 90 pa lang ho. This includes joint trainings, joint deployment, at saka yung agreement doon sa kung paano sila gagastusan. So of the 6,000, kung 90 pa lang ang nade-deploy natin, given na 1 year na lang, hindi ho talaga matatapos yon by 2022. Doon naman po sa transformation ng camps at saka yung communities ng MILF, meron tayong agreement na mag-set up ng normalization trust fund. Yung trust fund na ho yun ay lalagyan ng donors ng pera nila, government can contribute. Yung pong pera sa trust fund gagamitin natin doon sa transformation ng mga kampo at saka socio-economic development ng mga communities nila. Hindi pa ho gumagalaw yan. Na-approve pa lang ho ni Presidente. So, kung dyan kukunin yung gastos para dun sa transformation, 1 year na lang ho tayo, hindi pa nasi-set up yan, yung mechanism na yan, hindi rin ho yan matatapos by 2022. Doon naman po sa amnesty, kalalabas lang ho ng proclamation ng amnesty. Yung process will begin, appointment ng mga taong magpo-process niyan, magbibigin. Pinaka-importante rito sa amnesty, may mga senior leaders ng MILF na merong kaso, may mga iba nakakulong na. Kung serious tayo na mag-political transition sila para sa democratic process, and that includes participation in the democratic elections of the region and of the country, we need the amnesty before we do the elections. Kasi kung ako ay MILF, meron akong kaso, gusto kong kumandidato, hindi ako pwede dahil meron akong kaso. So, hindi ho magiging tunay at totoo yung democratic transition nila kung hindi natin bibigyan ng amnesty at saka pardon. Yung pong natitirang remaining period natin to go for an election is not sufficient to operationalize amnesty and pardon for many of the senior leaders of the MILF. So it is unjust. It would be unfair. It would be undemocratic to push for an election na hindi mo pa naman nagagrant yung amnesty doon sa mga combatants nila. Doon po sa private armed groups, ang agreement ho natin dyan, kasabay ho nung decommissioning, dapat mawala din yung mga private armies sa Bangsamoro. Kasi unfair ho sa mga MILF na nag-decommission sila ng combatants at saka firearms, pero meron ka pang mga private armed groups na sila namang maghahari-harian doon sa mga lugar. So hindi ho rin tama na hindi pa natatapos yung disbandment ng private armed groups, pero mag-election na tayo. Samantalang dinecommission natin yung mga MILF. Doon po sa third phase ng decommissioning, ang trigger ho noon ay yung operationalization ng policing in the Bangsamoro. Hindi pa ho ito natatapos. Pinag-uusapan pa lang ho namin yung guidelines doon sa policing. So wala hong trigger for the third phase of the decommissioning. So yun ho ay importante rin. Doon sa institution building ho ng Bangsamoro, marami din hong kulang na pinag-uusapan pa sa intergovernmental relations mechanism. But if these are asked, pwede naman ho kaming mag-respond nun. Ang pinaka-importante ho, kagaya kay Senator Gatchalian, alam ko siya nagtulak nung power for energy sa Bangsamoro. Pinag-uusapan pa lang ho yung co-management process dito. Halimbawa ho, sa Ligawasan Marsh, meron tayong prospective investor na gustong mag-invest doon sa exploration ng oil. Ito ay 50-50 ang sharing dito. Pero the mechanism on how to operationalize this has not been agreed yet. It's still being discussed at the level of the IGRB. Kaya ho hindi na pupush yung energy exploration in the Bangsamoro, which is a big potential for economic recovery in the region as well as in the country. So ito yung mga bagay na tingin ko ho ay hindi natin matatapos by 2022, which would have serious impact on completing the agreement of the parties and operationalizing what has been agreed as the Bangsamoro government in the region po. Salamat po.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Gatchalian, your name was mentioned relative to the energy proposals.
Yeah, but just to follow up on that question, but all of those identified by Attorney Sumarimbo, these can be completed even prior to the May elections, because these are all paperwork. And meetings can be conducted now through virtual. So I'm trying to understand. No, again, we have to make a decision, so we need to understand fully. All of those things can be achieved. For example, the amnesty, the intergovernmental relations, all of those can be conducted virtually, and these are all paperwork. So that's why I'm quite honestly unsatisfied with the explanation of OPAP earlier on where COVID particularly disrupted the whole process. Because that seems to be the crux of the problem, Mr. President. And that reasoning of COVID keeps on coming up. But I haven't heard any argument that can substantiate how COVID disrupted it. Because if paperwork lang po, even here in the Senate, Mr. President, we continue to approve bills, we continue to hear, we continue to investigate, we continue to do our jobs because everything is paperwork and we can do it virtually. So I'm trying to understand how COVID disrupted the whole process, but I don't see that reason for now, Mr. President, Mr. Chairman.
Minister Sinarimba, you would like to respond as well? Go ahead.
Yes, sir. We'll cite very specific example ho para makita lang ho natin. Yung last na decommissioning natin was 12,000. A large part of that agreement, yung baril ho ay dalhin sa Camp Darapanan at saka yung mga combatants natin dalhin doon. Part of that, kailangan physically dalhin sila. Nung pong natapos yung decommissioning natin, pinapauwi na natin sa Sulu, yung mga galing sa Sulu na combatants natin. Inabutan ho tayo ng lockdown. Hindi na ho sila allowed to enter Sulu. So nangyari ho, ang gumastos na sa pagpakain doon sa mga tao nila, yung ministry ho namin. Dahil wala hong budget si OPAP para pakainin yung mga combatants. In the continuing monitoring ho, yung pong mga tao ng OPAP, TPMT at saka yung IDB na nagmo-monitor doon sa decommissioning, kami na rin po ang gumastos doon sa RT-PCR testing nila. Kasi hindi na ho talaga magagalaw. So, nagtagal ho, nag-rent na lang ho ng barko ang OPAP after the quarantine period na required sa kanila, after namin sila i-test, pwede lang saka lang pinauwi yung mga combatants. So, there would be gatherings, there would be joint trainings, may mga iba hong kailangan na physical na may magtatrabaho para ho gumalaw yun. So, yun hong mga yun ay talaga hong impacted ho yun ng COVID-19.
Mr. Chairman.
Governor Sakur, before Governor Sakurtan responds, perhaps we'd like to put on alert Senator Pimentel if he has a reaction to this, and perhaps the good minority leader. Governor Sakurtan, you have the floor.
Sir, there was mention about the stranded combatants from Sulu in Cotabato. Actually, they were there. When COVID, came in, while they were delayed there at Adarapanan, they were there for 3-4 months, but we also provided some assistance to the family of those, I think 111 of them, only 111 of them. So hindi naman po ganoon kadami yung ginastusan ng So just to for the record, sir, at nagbigay po kami together with the military in the area ng kaunting tulong doon sa mga pamilya nila. And if I may, sir, in the matter of the task of the BTA, the law says that the implementation of the transition period can still proceed under a parliamentary government. And this was also mentioned by our majority floor leader, the Honorable Mig Subiri, na gusto natin ito mag-progress. So I would think that there is no better way of really strengthening the BARM than having a regular parliament. So kailangan talaga na para maging regular na ang parliament is para magkaroon talaga ng parliament is elect the members of the parliament. Anyway, they can continue to do whatever is the assigned task of the transition authority. In fact, the law says here in Article 16, Section 1, the transition period shall be without prejudice to the initiation or continuation of other measures that may be required by post-conflict transition and normalization even beyond the term of the Bangsamoro Transition Authority. So, yun lang po, sir, ang sinasabi natin. Thank you, sir.
We have a member of parliament here, Member of Parliament Rasur Ismail. Is it correct from what we've heard so far that because of COVID-19, no sessions were conducted, thus derailing some of the legislative initiatives that were supposed to be in place as required by the law? Is that the correct assumption? Member of Parliament Rasul Ismail, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kami po sa BTA Parliament ay merong regular session, no? But ang naging problema lang po namin ay yung mga kasama na mga taga Basilan, Sulu, Tawi-Tawi na minsan mahirap po yung signal nila. So hindi po sila nakaka-attend. Most of them. Pero on the part of the BTA Parliament na nagkakandak naman po kami ng regular session.
So, mali yung sinabi kanina that because of COVID, nabawasan yung workload nyo and hindi pa tayo pumupunta doon sa mga itatanong siguro ng iba kong kasama. You still have some deliverables insofar as some codes required of you, and I'm mentioning a very specific requirement, the electoral code, because from my readings, and the good majority leader can perhaps confirm this, that an electoral code is needed before we conduct an elections. So my question is, when do you intend to finish the passage of an electoral code for Bangsamoro?
Mr. Chair, gusto ko lang po ipaalam na ako po ay membro ng minority block ng BTA Parliament, and yung pag-passage po ng mga ibang importanteng codes ay nakasalalay po doon sa ng majority. No? As far as the minority block is concerned, sinusuportahan po din namin yung mga adhikain ng government of the day, pero ang nito ay ang bola po ay nasa ng majority.
Thank you. I think we have several members of Parliament in
Mr.
virtual
Chair.
attendance. Member of Parliament Omar Yazer, are you a member of the majority?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Can you answer that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning to the honorable senators, the chair of the Committee on Local Government and Electoral Suffrage and Reform. As far as the Bangsamoro Transition Authority is concerned, we are on track to passing the electoral code within this year. The draft bill has been completed already at the cabinet level, and there is just one need of an expert conversation with the National Commission on Elections to further iron out provisions that need to be clarified. Along this line, Mr. Chair, we also would like to inform you that the draft local governance code is already in the committee, and we believe that these two legislations needs parallel attention of the Parliament. Both would require public consultation, as there are provisions which we committed to the Senate during the deliberations of the local government of the Bangsamoro Organic Law, particularly the request of Senator Drilon that we include a provision on anti-dynasty. And we believe, Mr. Chair, that this commitment to the Senate needs us to be on the ground to conduct consultations, particularly with the local government units, the local leaders, the stakeholders, and this will require us to be on the ground and require us more time to present it to the stakeholders. On that note, Mr. Chair, we would like to inform you that it is not only funds or mobility that that is our problem right now. It's connectivity. In Sulu alone, with due respect to the governor, we understand that DITO has recently, built its satellites or transmitters there, and it is only recently that connectivity has been, improved. But still, with due respect to the governor of Sulu, they still have problems as to power and electrification. So there is difficulty for us to conduct Zoom consultations
especially in those areas in the islands. Now, Mr. Chair, we would like to clarify also the citation of the Honorable Governor of Sulu with utmost respect to him. His citation of that provision in the Bangsamoro Organic Law is not centered on the political process, but more particularly on the transitional justice mechanism. It was already properly answered by Attorney Sinarimbo that there are aspects in the political process that are inseparable to the normalization. Mr. Chair, as far as all of us, those who have been involved in the peace process, who have engaged with the government of the Republic of the Philippines, we understand the complexity and complications brought about by the COVID-19 pandemic and the disruption. We understand we are in a volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous situation because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And we understand this is not even about funding, Mr. Chair. We understand the difficulty of the OPAP. That's why we are calling for an extension to give them more time to realize their commitment and obligations under all signed peace agreements. Not only the comprehensive agreement at the Bangsamoro. Mr. Chair, please be reminded that the fulfillment or completion of the 1996 final peace agreement is also hinged on the fulfillment and completion of the implementation of the comprehensive agreement on the Bangsamoro, particularly on the transition process. We have been assured by the national government that the Moro National Liberation Front shall have vital participation under a new transitional arrangement brought about by a new autonomy law. The new autonomy law, sir, is referring to the comprehensive agreement on the Bangsamoro. The Republic Act 11054. Mr. Chair, I would like you to please recognize Attorney Nabil Tan, who has been designated as the leader of the delegation of the Bangsamoro Parliament. Thank you.
Before that, thank you. Before that, Senator Gatchalian still has the floor. And Governor Sakur, you will
Yes,
make
I just would like to respond. Again, Sulu was mentioned, especially about the power problem and the signal problem in the conduct of virtual meetings. In fact, I just would like to inform the August body, the Honorable Chairman, that I have been joining virtual meetings with the House, with the Senate, and other, in fact, even with BARM officials. But more of the problem is the absence of the members of the BTA in the province. So how would they know that there is such problem if they are not in the province? So most of them, if not all of them. So yun po ang we do not know wherever they are. So yun po ang problema. So now the matter of yung implementation, I would think, please.
I think, Governor, a citation was made by the BTA representative that my presumption is that it was you erroneously cited the provision.
Yes.
Yes.
And this is actually a provision provided to me by my lawyer. And I would think that this is what is in the law. That is why even last night we suggested that we submit legal opinion so that the competent authorities can properly weigh this. So, ganun po ang ano namin, Mr. Chairman. Maraming salamat. Thank you.
Our guests here, the mayors, you can have your lunch. This is a working hearing. You can proceed with your lunch. Anything more, Governor?
No more. Thank you.
The name of Senator Drilon was raised a while ago. If the minority leader would like to react, it was mentioned that a provision of the law was required by the good minority leader that it be part of that law. Senator Drilon, if
I was listening. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is the reference to the anti-dynasty provision that we inserted?
yes, you're correct, sir.
And I don't recall honestly what I do recall is that we proposed an anti-dynasty provision, which was not considered favorably because candidly they said baka wala nang maiiwan na opisyal sa Bangsamoro regional government. Lahat yan magkamag-anak. So we did not insist on that because of the reality of the culture in southern Philippines. But yes, we did propose that, and if I again, Mr. Chair, just on the basis of my memory, and maybe our resource persons can help us, was the end result was the issue resolved by referring this to the interim parliament for final disposition, Mr. Chairman?
The one who raised your name was a BTA member. Can you repeat what you said a while ago, sir? The BTA member, Omar Yazer, member of parliament.
Yes, sir. It is our commitment to include such a provision in the local governance code and even in the electoral code, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, the interparliamentary board, as far as the Bangsamoro Parliament is concerned, has already constituted our representative to the Bangsamoro Parliament Philippine Congress Forum. However, the said IGR body has not yet met with its counterparts with the Philippine Congress. Mr. Chair, may I repeat that we recognize the leader of the delegation of the Bangsamoro Parliament, my colleague, Deputy Speaker Attorney Nabil Tan.
Yes, but before that, if the good minority leader has still some propositions to state, he still has the floor.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I guess the logical question is, where are we in terms of coming up with a law or rule on anti-dynasty? Because I am convinced that such a provision could go a long way in improving, with all due respect, the governance.
Member of Parliament Omar, Senator Drilon still has the floor. You can mute.
Yes. All that was, as I said, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I guess the logical question is, where are we in terms of enacting law in the region on the anti-dynasty? This is an issue which must be confronted, whether we like it or not. That is why we tried to insert it in the organic law, but there was resistance, and the compromise was it should be taken up by the Bangsamoro Parliament. May we know exactly where we are in terms of letting this rule find its way in the statute books in the regional government?
Thank you, Senator Drilon. Member of Parliament Omar.
Yes,
You
sir.
can respond.
Thank you. As far as that important provision, sir, the draft also already included the draft electoral code and draft local governance code already included those provisions. And the draft local governance code is already at the committee level, while the draft electoral code is still at the cabinet level for further discussion and and final submission by the cabinet.
Thank you. Senator Drilon, anything further?
Update on where we are in terms of this very critical principle. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
I think Minister Iqbal is raising his hand, and then I will recognize Attorney Nabil Tan. Minister Iqbal, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to speak. I have many things to say, but I will just confine myself on the issue of the normalization track, which we are discussing right now as being delayed. Well, of course, first and foremost, I would like to state here for the record that our partnership with the members of the government peace negotiating panel or peace implementing panel is so important, and trust and confidence with each other is very high, and we are engaged in a problem-solving mode, and that's why we are moving forward. But there are challenges. Why this normalization track or process is not being implemented in accordance with the timeline? First, it's a process. And process, we have to follow a process. Process means that there are programs, there are procedures that must be followed. We cannot cut corners in this respect, because the normalization process is a process. That is one challenge why the time element assigned to it is getting many, many challenges. So that's the first. The second is about the budget. Of course, that's on the part of government, because both in the agreement of the MILF and the government of the Republic of the Philippines, normalization process or normalization track is being funded by the national government. And then, of course, in the Bangsamoro Organic Law, there is a provision there about normalization, wherein the Bangsamoro government has to undertake rehabilitation and development of conflict-affected areas in Mindanao, especially in Ibar, but with funding support from government. So that's the second issue here. And the 40,000 MILF combatants to be decommissioned would require 43 billion, according to the OPAP. It requires 43 billion. That's a huge amount of money. So the third one is about the COVID-19 pandemic. Nobody expected that the COVID-19 pandemic will hit us in 2020. We were caught flat-footed. So siyempre, marami tayong mga trabaho, marami tayong mga programa na kailangan obserbahan natin ang health protocol at sa walang mass gathering to a certain extent. Talagang nagpahina po, nagpabagal po sa trabaho natin. And then, pang-apat po, na dahil bakit hindi masyado mabilis, yung legal requirements. Halimbawa, yung pag-establish po ng TGR, Transitional Justice and Reconciliation Commission, yan ay dadaan po yan sa Kongreso ng Pilipinas. So hindi ho mabilis. Halimbawa, mayroon ng proposed bill sa House of Representatives, and I do not know whether there is a counterpart bill in the Senate. So ito, kailangan ito, dadaan ito sa Kongreso ng Pilipinas. And then pangalawa po, yung amnesty po, yung proclamation po, yung grant of amnesty and pardon po, it will emanate from the President of the Republic of the Philippines, of course, with the concurrence of Congress. So ito rin ang ibang dahilan kung bakit medyo hindi natin maraming challenges doon sa normalization process po natin. And then siguro, yung iba pa dyan dahilan, We are not engaged with the government of the Republic of the Philippines Hispanic in a single point. As I said earlier, we are partners in implementing all the agreements signed between the government and MLF. So siguro kailangan pa rin natin i-revisit yung efforts natin. Baka on the part of the government, on the part of the MLF, or either of the two parties, hindi masyadong very strong ang push. So siguro yan din ang isang dahilan bakit hindi masyadong very strong ang push natin. Kung talagang pinupush natin ito, siguro hindi lang itong makaya natin. Pero yun na nga, maraming challenges. Ang isa dyan, yung Bangsamoro Normalization Trust Fund. Ito po ay pinag-usapan po na namin ito during the last administration. Kung kailan po nakuha yung Bangsamoro Normalization Trust Fund po, yung tinatawag natin Special Presidential Authority, very recently na po. Kung nag-put up na natin at na-operationalize po natin ang Bangsamoro Trust Fund, Normalization Trust Fund po, yung mga gaps po doon sa funding support o funding requirements sa Normalization Trust, dito natin mahuhugot. Pero hindi pa ito formally and officially na-launch ito. So kailangan natin ito i-launch kagad ito. So ito ang nakikita ko na mga dahilan kung bakit yung expected natin na bilis ng normalization process hindi natin naabot dahil dito sa mga factors na ito. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you, Minister Iqbal. One question coming from the chair. The 43 billion that you mentioned a while ago, is this over and above the block grant given by the national government? Or educate me, sir, is it part of the block grant? Or do we have to have a separate allocation? Just educate me, sir. Although I was a resource person before during the initial hearings years ago, medyo ligaw po ako dito. Minister Iqbal?
The answer to that, Honorable Chair, is that the funding requirements for the normalization process or normalization track it should be or shall be shouldered by the national government po. Yan po ang nasa agreement po ng gobyerno sa MILF. Kaya kahit na po doon yung normalization aspect ng Bangsamoro Organic Law po, wherein the Bangsamoro government shall undertake rehabilitation development of conflict-affected areas sa Mindanao, especially in Dibam, it would also require funding support from the national government po. But as to anong mga specific aspect po ng 43 billion, since this came from the OPAP, I think the best entity to answer your question, Your Honor, should be from the OPAP.
Minister Iqbal, OPAP, are you still there? Before I recognize finally Attorney Nabiltan. OPAP, ano po yung sagot doon? OPAP, are you still there, Yusek? Peace process?
Sir. Yes, sir.
So the 43 billion that is supposed to answer for the decommissioning process is not part of the block grant. And apparently, the OPAP is now, as per Minister Iqbal, is now in charge of sourcing the funds required for the decommissioning process. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. I think the 43 billion is not part of the block grant, sir, because based on the computation given to us by the technical working group of the socio-economic unit, both from the MILF and the GPAs, that the 1 million per combatant, meaning for the 40,000, that will be around 40 billion already. So that will be funded by the national government to finance or to finance the whole program for normalization process. So the amount needed is really very important to push for all the programs needed for the normalization.
Sir, mention was made by Minister Iqbal, and I quote, not a very strong push. Would that refer to a not very strong push for the acquisition and sourcing of funds insofar as the normalization, the commissioning process is concerned? And again, through a circular pattern, it will now refer back to OPAP. So are you the one in charge of that sourcing?
Yes, sir. OPAP is in charge, sir, in the sourcing of the needed budget for the whole normalization process. As mentioned by Minister Iqbal, we are exploring the BNTF as one of the source of funds to finance some of the programs needed for the normalization, especially on the development of the 6 acknowledged camps that will have a big amount to develop these 6 camps as a progressive community. On the aspect of pushing for the programs to be budgeted, I think OPAP is doing its best, but with the limited amount being given to OPAP each year, we only could implement project that is very limited also, just like the immediate cash assistance. That is the very basic program that OPAP considered, especially during the commissioning. Each combatant after the commission, they will be given the 100,000 cash assistance to give them the opportunity to start a new life. So the other program, sir, is being discussed in a form of project, not only for the combatants but also to the communities. So I have mentioned a while ago that a lot of programs were being discussed with the other agency like the NIA, the DTI, CHED, even the DOLE are giving us support in developing the combatants and their communities. So we are pushing, sir. We are actually exerting effort to request for additional funds to finance other programs, but we do also understand that the national government have some priority, especially during this pandemic, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Yusek, and reference was made to a normalization trust fund, which I think your office is likewise a big handle. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. On the Bangsamoro National Trust Fund, just recently, the SPA that was mentioned by Minister Iqbal was recently signed, and we are about to launch the BNTF sometime next month to really operationalize the trust, the program. In fact, we are also attempting to do the same during the launching, the meeting of the international donors, so that countries may put in the needed amount for the program to really finance the programs or the projects for the normalization, sir.
Thank you, Yusek. Perhaps to reframe my question and the question of Senator Gatchalian and your answer likewise to the COVID insinuation that delayed several initiatives. COVID probably, if you can reframe your answer, COVID probably affected the mobility of our BARM officials insofar as the implementation of projects are concerned. And COVID likewise, on the part of OPAP, affected the disbursement of funds because a lot of national government funds were diverted towards COVID concern. And in fact, the head of your office is now the vaccine czar. So if you rephrase your answer, perhaps you can patch up a good story that all of this are related to COVID rather than having a single chapter, various chapters that would refer to COVID. You can have a good storyline, Yusek, that will thread all of this, pinpoint that virus as the cause of the delay, as well as the good positive boost that would require the postponement of the elections. And it would require you to be a good scriptwriter screenplay writer in having that good story. Do you agree with me, Yusek? Diretso
Yes,
mo
sir.
na ganon.
Opo, sir. Yes, sir. I think the COVID-19 really affected the program, the implementation of the programs for normalization, sir. So if we to start with, sir, the pandemic last year affected the implementation of the phase 3 of the decommissioning. That's a very big program that should have started last year. Since the 14,000 cannot just be completed because the list coming from the MILF really affected also our implementation because the list was just submitted last December of 2020, and that the inventory of the 14,000 is really a big challenge because the MILF who are doing the inventory of the 14,000 is being faced with a lot of challenges like traveling from the places of the combatants to their camps, inventory of their firearms, and I think the program for the phase 3 to start this year is a very big challenge already because of the COVID-19. Some of our budget intended for the program last year was diverted to the needed attention in the medical requirements of staff traveling from one place to another because we are employing a lot of people in doing the process of decommissioning of the 14,000. We are employing around 500 people going around. So it's time that they move. They will use a lot of medical supplies like the swabbing, like the disinfectant, and all other things. So this budget was not included in our.
I understand, Yusek. May understand. Before I allow Attorney Nabiltan to speak, isang tanong na lang. You mentioned a while ago, I heard a while ago, that out of the 6,000 supposed to be integris to the Philippine National Police, AFP, only 90 were able to join the PNP, AFP. Tama po ba yun?
No,
Tama po ba yun? Yusek?
no, sir.
So ibig sabihin malaki talaga yung kulang. The reason why I'm raising that is because the chair would like to take advantage of this opportunity. Given that your secretary is the vaccine czar, are we now saying, and can you accept this proposal coming from the chair, that the 40,000 combatants should likewise be vaccinated, even if they're not part of the PNP hierarchy, courtesy of OPAP, especially so that zero vaccination pa sa BARM. So can we have that confirmed that the non-decommissioned combatants of the MILF would likewise be vaccinated courtesy of OPAP soon? Nabigyan na ba kayo ng bakuna? Na-allocate na ba nag-allocate na ba kayo ng bakuna doon sa ating mga combatants? Because we have allocated vaccines for the AFP, PNP, nauna na sila eh. Can we have the MILF be vaccinated as well?
Not yet, sir. We are not in the priorities list, but we have allocated the 14,000 for the commission for phase 3 for the RT-PCR, sir. Swabbing, not vaccination, sir. So
with that reply, I think the chair would, with the permission of my colleagues, would be forced to communicate with the vaccine czar, especially is also head of OPAP, that part of the priority list should include the MILF, the non-combatants, even though they're not yet formally part of the Philippine National Police or the Armed Forces, they should be vaccinated. And you should push for that, Yusek. Di po ba? it should be you should have insisted that they should be the 40,000 combatants should be part of, even though you have not yet granted the 1 million, at least yung bakuna man lang mabigay sa kanila into dosages, Yusek.
Yes, sir. We will consider that suggestion, sir. Especially
Thank
for
you.
the
Thank you.
14,000 to be decommissioned for this.
Yes, unahin natin yung combatants. And can we now, unless Senator Gatchalian, sir.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, just on this note, may I request from USEC, and I heard the chair earlier that this will be a series of hearings. May I request from USEC a detailed presentation on the normalization and decommissioning, as well as where we are, as well as the activities that follow suit in that normalization and decommissioning, and also how their manifestation of support to the extension can put on track the normalization and decommissioning on a detailed manner also, Mr. Chair, so that we will be educated, not only motherhood statements, not only general statements, but detailed list of activities on how OPAP plans to implement the normalization and decommissioning for the next hearing, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Senator Amy Marcos and then the minority leader. Senator, with the permission
No,
of Senator.
just in addition to the request of Senator Gatchalian, may I urge that the PNP and the AFP also be consulted in the formulation of that report, in as much as there seem to be some contradictory numbers.
We note that, Senator Marcos. I think the numbers mentioned a while ago speaks of they speak of 14,000, 12,000. It's the phasing, but the total universe is 40,000. The USEC of OPAP is nodding his head. That's so.
Yes, that's right. That's right. The universe is the total is the same, but there are so many distinctions regarding the success or failure of these phases.
We note that, Senator Marcos. The minority leader is recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. In addition to the previous request of my two colleagues, may I also request our resource persons to give us a memo as to whether or not the postponement of this election would need a plebiscite. I can notice from the hearing that there is no unanimity as to whether or not the election should be postponed. And therefore, it is reasonable to expect that this issue will be brought to the Supreme Court. So may I request that a legal memorandum be prepared to defend the proposition that there is no plebiscite necessary, because I do not see anything that in the discussion that would resolve this issue. That's our request, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Drilon. We note that, and the chair directs the Department of Justice representative virtually present to have that position paper, as well as the Bangsamoro Transition Authority. I recognize the presence of the Deputy Speaker, Kadape Magundadato. If you can likewise jointly with the DILG BARM to submit that position paper as to the plebiscite requirement. So, and COMELEC likewise, who is virtually present. We can expect that next week. Senator Marcos recognized.
Yes, sorry. If I may, just to contribute to the query of Senator Drilon, as head of the Committee on Electoral Reform, I inquired, and the position of COMELEC is that Article 17, Section 1 of the BARM law should be upheld, where any amendment, revision, or repeal shall be made by law by Congress of the Philippines, thereby not requiring any plebiscite at all.
That we note that manifestation, Senator Marcos. That's why we're requiring DOJ, the Bangsamoro, as well as the COMELEC to submit to this committee position papers relative to the plebiscite query of Senator Trilon.
Mr. Chairman,
Who is
sir,
Governor Sakur?
sir,
Briefly, before I allow your brother to speak, because your brother has been attempting to speak since 30 minutes ago. I'm not favoring any brother.
Sir, I also have here a copy of the legal opinion, one of which is the amendments to the organic law pertaining to extension of the BTA must be subject to a plebiscite, which poses logistical and political issues. As the transition period has been set by the organic law, the only way it can be extended is by amending said law. And any amendment to or revision or repeal of the organic law shall be made by a law enacted by Congress. Now, the legal issue of requiring a plebiscite for amendments of the organic law pertaining to suspension of the election has been raised. Proponents of the extension assert that regional elections may be reset without subjecting the legislation to a plebiscite. But the court in Abbas Kida versus Senate of the Philippines declared that a plebiscite is not necessary to ratify the resetting of armed elections on the ground that the law resetting the election did not amend the then armed organic law. Now, in this case, it is in the organic law. I mean, setting the date of the elections and synchronize with the 2022 election. This is now the question that we want to avoid this. I mean, this mistake.
Yes, that is already part of the records of this committee.
And if I may, Mr. Chairman, I would like to submit a copy of this legal opinion to the Chairman and the honorable members of the Senate.
Your brother has been silenced for a long time. So, with the permission of my colleagues, may we request Attorney Nabil Tan to say his piece after removing his mouthpiece and face mask.
Thank you very much. My classmate in the GSC, Chairman, now Senator Francis Tolentino, and to the members of the committee here present in this hearing. We are here to represent the Speaker of the Parliament, Attorney Pangalian Balindong, and we are a group which, if we may allow, I would like to introduce very quickly. I am Deputy Speaker Nabil Tan of the Bangsamoro Transition Authority. With me also is Deputy Speaker Omar Sema of the Bangsamoro Transition Authority, and two Deputy Majority Leaders, Attorney Faisal Intago and Attorney Kadapi Mangudadato. And Deputy Minister and MP Attorney Jose Lorena is also with us. So there are five of us that was tasked by the Speaker to participate in this hearing. Thank you very much first of all, let me thank you for the invitation to attend this hearing. May we extend the message of the Speaker, his greetings to all the members of the committee and all those present. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. With all due respect and to put context in the things that I will be saying is that may I introduce myself as a former OPAC Undersecretary for 20 years. And I was a member of the government panel that negotiated with the MNLF. And my position was chairman of the implementing panel for the national government with the MILF. I have heard about the discussions earlier, and I'd like to also contribute to the discourse. The extension of the transition period is very much needed. It is imperative and urgent to extend the transition for the following reasons. that the BOL, there are mandates in the BOL that has not yet been performed. The CAP, the Comprehensive Agreement on the Bangsamoro, provided for the two tracks implementation, the political track and the normalization. In the political track, it abolished the previous arm and replaced with a new political entity. And the normalization track, which is very tedious and takes a lot of process, long process. To be direct to the point, the normalization process, in every step of the way, there is a process. If I remember right, recall correctly, when I was chairman of the government panel, every step, like verification, identification of camps, where the combatants of the MLF are coming from, identify, verify, validate, verify, including the combatants that will be decommissioned. And I was looking at the huge number. The 40,000 is the total to be decommissioned combatants in all phases, from phase 1 to phase 4. And I think more than the budget issue is the process of making the combatants understand the importance of decommissioning. And there is a need to do it on a proper basis. And you need to bring back and forth the combatants. First, to be verified and validated, to include their firearms, and then return them back before you even start the first regular step. So there are preparatory steps that will really consume time, and that has been hampered by the restraint in the movement that was caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. And so in the political track, we have some inadequacies, but we are trying our best to pass all the priority codes. In fact, we have passed several laws, but two priority codes stand out, the administrative code and the electoral code. So in the parliament now filed is the local governance code, and at the finalization stage by the cabinet level, on the cabinet level of the government of the day, is the electoral code. That is up for final review. So to me, there is really need, an urgent need. We have gained so much. We have, this is a journey. The implementation of the peace process with the MILF is a journey. I hope that we will have the vision, not just the sight, to understand the very importance of normalization. There is a partner, willing partner that would dance with us, that is willing to accept government partnership. So I guess it is better and more important that we continue the partnership with the MILF. The MNLF also is part of the equation, because we are now trying to complete the implementation of the 1996 Final Peace Agreement based on the Jeddah Communique of January 2016. There are some things left there, although mostly it has been addressed. OPAP, I am a member of the coordinating committee with the MNLF Miswari Group. I was one of the five. I am one of the five that has been designated by President Duterte to be part of the coordinating committee of the national government to talk with the MILF, with the MNLF. And for advance info, we were informed by Secretary Galvez that we will be meeting anytime soon with the joint panel of the MNLF. So there are things to consider to put a closure or completion of all these signed peace agreements. There is also a problem when you push through and disregard, example, you disregard the provisions in the poll the agreement, there is a call to sign an exit agreement between government and the MILF. So long as all the both parties agree, plus the third party facilitator and the third party monitoring team also certifies that there has been a completed implementation of the provisions of the comprehensive agreement on the Bangsamoro. We are far from that, Mr. Chairman. And I think there's a lot of things to do. And there is a more imperative need to preserve whatever gains we had in preserving the peace for our homeland. And I thank you for this opportunity. With all due respect, my context is the peace process, not on the election. And I think more than democratic exercise of the right to vote is the preservation of the gains of peace. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Attorney Nabil. I've been seeing a very shiny Freemasonry ring. I think it's very visible in the screen. Before I give the opportunity to our other colleagues to ask queries, if there are any. I will be constrained to state that we will have, as I mentioned again, we will have other hearings aside from this, wherein Secretary Lorenzana and perhaps Secretary Galvez and the DBM Secretary would be joining us. I'd like to recognize the online presence of Mayor Sumulong Sultan of Pikit Cotabato. And we cannot finish this in one sitting. There are a lot of issues to consider. I hear
Mr. Chairman.
Is that Senator Zubiri?
Yeah, if you can also invite if you can also invite Mr. Chairman, Secretary Dominguez, because I know he's heavily invested into the Bangsamoro Organic Law and the application of the BARM of the Department of Finance, Mr. President.
Yes, we note that Senator Zubiri, as well as the Secretary of the Department of Justice. For the information of all the personalities present, we just received a folder from Governor Sakurtan relative to the legal query that he mentioned a while ago. So we still have a lot of resource persons to Governor Sakur.
Mr. Chairman, what I submitted is a legal opinion. Actually, our concern is just the legality and the properliness of the proposal to postpone the elections. So, in the matter of who heads or who leads the BARM, is not anymore an issue because we already agreed that it is going to be Chairman Murad who shall continue to lead. But would the elections be preferable over the extension, or would the extension be preferable over the? But the legal matter should be, considered there, so that it does not embarrass any of the institutions. So thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
You can have your lunch, sir. Are there questions coming from the other members of the committee? If none, I'd like to have the head of the third-party monitoring team, Heino Marius. Thereafter, we will have an NGO, PPCRB, and then COMELEC perhaps, before we ask the author of the measure, Senator Pimentel, to make his final wrap-up position, and then we will still have this next hearing, and I've heard a lot of process, the commissioning process. What we're undertaking likewise is a process to achieve a meeting of the minds. It's not easy. It's not easy. It will take time. It will take patience. And like the big achievement of NASA, that prototype, that rover that landed on Mars, February 19, the name of that vehicle as big as an SUV, which landed on Mars with a parachute as big as a football field, is Perseverance. So it's Mars Perseverance. So what this committee and as well as the members of my committee are trying to achieve is unanimity through Perseverance. It will take time. It is a process. So just hang on. We will achieve that. They reach Mars. BARM is nearer than Mars. It took them 7 months to reach Mars. Sulu can be reached in a few hours. So just hang on. We recognize the last three resource persons. Heino Marius, chairman of the third-party monitoring team, sir. Briefly for your statement here. Just as we thank Senator Gatchalian, who is about to attend another committee hearing, we thank him for his valuable inputs. Mr. Heino Marius, we recognize you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for inviting the third-party monitoring team to this public hearing. The TPMT, as an independent body, has the mandate to monitor and assess the implementation of the comprehensive agreement on the Bangsamoro. We provide regular reports to the two parties who signed the agreement and issue a public report once a year. The last one came out in December 2020. The substance of the peace agreement is about securing the identity of the Bangsamoro citizens through the establishment of a new political entity as outlined in the organic law. The agreement reflects a delicate balance, political autonomy and meaningful self-governance in return for an end to armed hostilities. This balance is also mirrored in the two pillars of the peace process, the political track and the normalization track. We as TPMT would obviously like the CAB to succeed in bringing lasting peace to the Bangsamoro, to Mindanao, and to the Philippines. The success of the peace process will depend first and foremost on whether the two parties, the government of the Philippines and the Moro Islamic Liberation Front, remain committed to implementing what they agreed to achieve. Since today's discussion is about extending the duration of the transition period, the question could be asked whether there is sufficient time to obtain the intended objectives of the CAB by June 2022. Arguably, this is not the case. Just to give some examples, initially, the BTA had to work with the ARMM budget. The Bangsamoro Appropriation Acts only came into effect starting from 2020. The intergovernmental relations mechanism took some time before it picked up momentum. The transition of powers from national agencies to the BARM and the turnover of Cotabato City experienced delays. And on top of that, we are experiencing a pandemic which has considerably delayed public life. Despite these challenges, a lot has already been achieved on the political track, including on priority legislation, institution building, and setting up effective administrative structures. These are very complex and time-consuming tasks which should not be underestimated. On the normalization side, progress has been slower. If we take decommissioning as an example, 2 rounds have been conducted. The second round was completed in March last year and took some 8 months in pre-COVID conditions. There are 2 more rounds remaining with 14,000 combatants each, which, given current health restrictions, will very likely take much longer. We therefore cannot realistically expect that decommissioning will have been completed by June next year. There are other issues where still more needs to be done. Under normalization related to camps transformation, disbandment of private armed groups, and reaching a common understanding on operationalizing the police force. On a positive note, there is progress on amnesty. Here we note the proposal to establish a National Amnesty Commission. We as TPMT believe that the political and normalization tracks should run parallel and reinforce each other. The CAB commits the two parties to nurture the integrity of the whole peace process. Only on the basis of the complete picture will both parties be in a position to sign the exit agreement at the end of the process. It should be clear that responsibility for what has or what has not been achieved lies with both parties. What is encouraging is that the two parties address outstanding issues in a spirit of cooperation and with a high level of commitment. It is because of this positive spirit of cooperation that the TPMT, in its December report, describes the peace process as fundamentally on track. But it has also become clear over the last couple of months that there are many elements of the process which will require time beyond June next year for their completion. We as TPMT believe that the parties who negotiated the peace agreement should have the opportunity to bring the transition with all its challenges and complexities to a successful conclusion. It would exceed the mandate of the TPMT to put forward a position on whether the transition period for the BARM should be extended or not. This is a political decision which is up to the two parties and the elected representatives of the Filipino people. But allow me to say that the peace process is at a very crucial stage and would greatly benefit from consistency and predictability. I would also like to mention that the transition period was very short in its allocation to start with. With that in view, it would be important to obtain clarity on the way ahead as early as possible. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Marius. Thank you for your input, especially that remarks relative to the shortness of the transition period. We note that. May we now have. We will also be inviting you, Mr. Marius, for the next hearing, as well as the Ambassador of the European Union and the Ambassador of the United Kingdom. May we now have PPCRB for their official comments relative to the postponement. Maria Isabel Buenabra, if I'm correct. Are you still there? PPCRB? PPCRB is not. What about NAMPREL? Mr. Lito Avena. NAMPREL, are you still around? You can unmute. You can unmute. NAMPREL?
Yes.
Yes, and then we'll have the author of the bill, Senator Pimentel, have his last word. NAMPREL, any word on this?
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon to the whole committee and the resource persons.
Can you speak louder, and if you can open your video?
Oh, yes. Okay. Video.
Go ahead, Namfrel.
Yes, our position is okay. Our position is about okay. We are not close to the extension, but we.
Can you repeat that? And move closer to the microphone.
I am close to the microphone already. I'm sorry that I have a poor internet connection right now. Our position is that we're not opposed to the extension of the BTA. However, we'd like to go through with the election of the composition of the BTA. So that's the basic position of them. We will send you our position paper as soon as we are able to complete it. That's the long and short.
Do that, please, because we can hardly hear you, sir.
Yes, yes, sir. Okay, we will send our position paper as soon as possible.
Thank you, Namprel. Unless some of my colleagues are poised to ask questions, we recognize again. Unfortunately, Senator Gordon cannot link with us. He is also a sponsor of a measure. But Senator Pimentel is gracious enough to wrap up his position, having heard the various positions coming from the Bangsamoro group, the oppositors, as well as the national government, the NGO representative. Senator Pimentel is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. But full disclosure, no, I was not able to follow all the proceedings because we were also sometimes cut off. But at any rate, I'm happy to have heard the expressions of support for the measure. And I'm also glad to know the position of those who hold some reservations, that the reservations are more legal than political. So as a lawyer myself, so I'm interested in resolving these legal issues because it is implied in the measure that we will only do this if it is constitutional and or legally valid to do so. Remember that the law on the BARM is I will just use the word superior to ordinary law because this is a law which is approved by the constituents in a plebiscite. Can you still hear me?
We hear you, Senator Pimentel.
Hello.
Yes, we still hear you. I
think I got cut off, but where did I get cut off, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah. The word superior, after the word superior.
Yes. Okay.
Go on, yes.
Okay. The law on the establishing the BARM is superior to ordinary law because this is approved in the plebiscite by the people affected by the law. So that's why we have to concern ourselves with issues about constitutionality or legality. So I'm also interested in those issues raised. So I will just ask for a copy also of the position papers to be submitted. But overall, I'm happy with what I've heard that there is actually support for the measure and the recognition of reality na naapektuhan naman talaga tayo ng pandemic. Kahit anong sabihin po natin na kahit tayo siguro sa Senado dyan, although hindi lahat, bumagal din po yung output natin eh. Lalo na po itong BARM which is in a transitory period, transition period. Therefore may mga birth pains po yan. Tapos dumating pa po yung pandemic. So definitely apektado tayo in terms of productivity and also lumabas in terms of budget. So ano na po siguro yun, I think that is already an accepted fact. So I will go back to my original motivation. This is just to restore the time lost to caused by the pandemic leaders of the BARM who are under transition period. So I hope you heard my last statement, Mr. Chairman. So thank you very much. Maraming salamat po.
Maraming salamat, Senator Pimentel. To our other resource persons, which probably were not given the chance to speak, a lot of them, I owe an apology to the ILG Undersecretary Halos Host, the ILG Undersecretary Echeverry, the DOJ representative, the Commission on Elections representative, the NAMPREL representative, and a lot of other parties which were not given ample time to, or not given time to speak. I assure you that there will be a second hearing of this committee which would involve the policy directions. That's why we will be inviting the Secretaries of National Defense, Budget and Management, as well as Finance, and the Secretary Galvez himself. You will be given your chance to speak. But before we end, I'd like to thank all our resource persons present physically and virtually, especially the delegation coming from Sulu. All the mayors of Sulu are here. I'm sorry we cannot afford a hefty lunch, but we provided you some pastillas from Bacolod City. That will be sweet memories for you and probably toothache after a week, but don't blame me. I'd like to thank Governor Sakurtan for his wisdom shared to this committee, Minister Iqbal, the Minister of DILG, and all other resource persons, Nabil Tan, and as well as the third-party monitoring group and OPAP, also Member of Parliament Rasul Ismail. This is a process. I repeat, this is a process. We started the process. We will end the process, but we hope to end that process with peace in mind. So on behalf of the Committee on Local Government, without objection, this committee hearing of the Committee on Local Government relative to Senate Bills 2019 and 2025 is hereby suspended. Thank you. Thank you.